Have you ever wondered what secrets still linger in the shadows of history? Stories carved in stone, whispered through forgotten text, or buried deep beneath the earth. For every triumph humanity has recorded, there are mysteries that refuse to be explained. From ancient maps that depict lands no one should have known to tombs of rulers that vanish from all trace to monuments so precise and massive that even modern engineers struggle to comprehend their creation. These enigmas stand as chilling reminders that the past is not as silent as it seems. Imagine civilizations rising and falling, leaving behind only cryptic clues. Imagine artifacts that seem to belong to another age or another world entirely. What truths lie hidden in these unanswered questions? Were they the works of extraordinary human ingenuity, or something far more unsettling? Tonight we step into the unknown, uncovering mysteries that defy reason and ignite the imagination. So sit back, relax, and let's dive together into the most haunting historical puzzles that still send chills down the spine. In the golden sands of ancient Egypt, among the colossal monuments and timeless rivers that defined one of humanity's greatest civilizations, there exists a silence, a gap in history that has puzzled scholars for more than 3,000 years. It is the mystery of Akhenaten, the pharaoh who dared to change everything and then, almost as suddenly, vanished from the record. Akhenaten was no ordinary ruler. Known first as Amenhotep IV, he inherited the throne of Egypt in the 14th century BCE at a time when tradition and ritual were woven into the very fabric of society. But within a few short years, he began a revolution, one not of conquest, but of belief. He abandoned the powerful priesthood of Amun and declared that only one god should be worshipped. Aten, the sun disk. Under his reign, the great temples of Egypt echoed with hymns to the radiant light of An, and a new capital city, Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, rose from the desert in dazzling splendour. And yet, after his death, Akhenaten's presence seems to dissolve. His name was chiselled out of monuments, his images were defaced. Even his very body, his final resting place, has never been identified with certainty. How could a man who reshaped an empire so completely disappear so thoroughly? Historians have pieced together fragments of his life from inscriptions, ruins, and the remnants of Amarna itself. They tell us of a ruler whose vision was radical, even dangerous. By elevating Aten above all other gods, Akhenaten challenged not only centuries of tradition, but also the immense power of Egypt's priesthood. To his followers, he was a visionary. To his enemies, perhaps a heretic. Mainstream Egyptology offers one explanation. After his death, Akhenaten's successors, possibly Tutankhamun, the boy king, and later generals like Hormb, sought to erase him from memory. The Amarna period, as it became known, was officially condemned. The capital was abandoned and Akhenaten himself was cast into a kind of historical exile. This attempt at erasure would explain the defaced statues, the destroyed carts, and the near-total silence about him in later records. But the mystery runs deeper. If Akhenaten was buried, where is his tomb? Several candidates have been proposed. Some believe he lies somewhere within the Valley of the Kings, hidden among the great pharaohs. Others point to the unfinished royal tomb at Amarna, suggesting that he was once interrupted there, only to be moved in later years. A few argue that his remains may have been deliberately destroyed, a final act of vengeance by those who sought to obliterate his memory forever. In 1907, archaeologists discovered an unidentified body known as the Amarna mummy, that some suggested could be Akhenaten himself. Yet modern analysis has cast doubt, with genetic testing revealing uncertainties, contradictions, and a web of possible identities. Was this the heretic pharaoh or another royal entirely? The evidence refuses to settle. Beyond the physical, Akhenaten's disappearance has fueled speculation of a more extraordinary kind. Some have proposed that his unique artistic representations, elongated features, almost alien-like proportions, hint at a medical condition, or perhaps something more symbolic. Was his radical vision of the sun disk born from spiritual experience from illness, or from a perspective we cannot fully grasp? Others wonder about the wider implications of his monotheism. Was Akhenaten the first true monotheist in recorded history, a precursor to later faiths that would dominate the world? If so, why was his revolution so thoroughly erased? Was it simply political, or was there something in his teachings that later rulers feared too much to preserve? More speculative voices go further still, suggesting that Akhenaten's disappearance hints at mysteries beyond history. Was he, as fringe theories propose, a figure with knowledge beyond his age, an outsider in some sense whose brief reign threatened the balance of Egypt's timeless traditions? These ideas often drift into the fantastic, but they remind us of how little we truly know about this enigmatic figure. Standing in the ruins of Amarna today, one feels both awe and unease. The city was vast, its temples open to the blazing sun, its streets filled with life for barely 2 decades before being abandoned to the desert winds. Imagine the sudden silence that followed, the shutting of doors, the dismantling of statues, the hasty burial of names. It is as though an entire experiment in civilization was conducted, then carefully erased. And yet erasure is never complete. Fragments survive, whispers remain. Enetan's hymns to the sun still resonate. Haunting in their beauty, you shine forth in the sky, O living Aten, beginning of life. The very fact that we continue to ask questions about him shows that his disappearance did not succeed. His shadow lingers, challenging us to reconsider what we think we know about history. Was Enhetan a visionary prophet centuries ahead of his time? Was he a reckless heretic whose experiment threatened the stability of Egypt? Or was he something more, an enigma meant to test the limits of our understanding of the past? For now, the answers lie buried perhaps forever. What we are left with is the silence of the desert, the broken stones of Amarna, and the enduring question, what truly became of Akhenaten, the pharaoh who vanished from history, from the unsecured ruins of Egypt, where Akhenaten's vanished legacy still whispers through the sands. We turn now to a far colder, more distant realm, a map that challenges our understanding of the world and the journeys of those who came before us. The Vinland map, delicate and yellowed with age, lies flat beneath glass in a quiet library, its faded ink tracing coastlines that should not exist, and words that hint at a world long hidden from the eyes of most Europeans. At first glance, it appears unassuming, a parchment roughly the size of a modern sheet of paper with familiar medieval script and illustrations of continents. Yet when scholars examined the map in the mid-10th century, a startling revelation emerged. Along the western edge of the map in what would become North America, a land labelled Vinland stretches into view. According to the map, Viking explorers had reached these shores centuries before Columbus, a claim that challenges long-held assumptions about the age of discovery. The Vinland map is thought to date from the 15th century, yet the very idea that Europeans might have crossed the Atlantic hundreds of years earlier had been whispered in sagas and oral traditions for centuries. The map depicts Greenland and Iceland with accuracy consistent with other contemporary sources, but it is the depiction of Vinland that raises eyebrows. How could a European mapmaker in the 1400s possess knowledge of a coastline that would not be widely explored or documented for another half-century? Mainstream historians suggest that the map may be a copy of earlier Norse knowledge, a transcription of the sagas into cartographic form. It is possible that the creator working in a scriptorium somewhere in Europe had access to oral accounts of Viking voyages and attempted to capture them with the precision of a medieval hand. Yet even with this explanation, questions remain. The ink analysed in the 1970s and again in the 2000s yielded conflicting results. Some tests suggested medieval origins, while others hinted at modern tampering or forgery. Could the map be authentic? Or is it a carefully constructed hoax designed to challenge our perceptions of history? The uncertainty deepens when one considers the historical context. In the mid-15th century, Europe was poised on the edge of maritime revolution. Maps were coveted tools of exploration, secrecy, and ambition. Depiction of Vinland could have been politically sensitive, a secret known only to a select few. Or perhaps it was purely speculative, drawn from fragments of travellers' tales and imaginative reasoning. Yet its geographic features, including peninsulas and bays, seem to correspond remarkably well to areas explored by the Norse settlers centuries earlier. How did the choreographer know what they did, if not from some source rooted in actual exploration? The Vinland map also invites deeper, more speculative inquiries. Some scholars argue that the parchment itself contains anomalies. Certain chemical traces in the ink suggest substances not commonly used in the 15th century. Others note the peculiar accuracy of coastal lines as though the cartographer had seen these lands firsthand. Could the map be evidence of a forgotten voyage, a secret chapter of history deliberately left out of the mainstream narrative? Or is it a convergence of myth, legend, and meticulous craftsmanship that simply appears to defy explanation? Adding to the intrigue are the sagas of Norse explorers such as Leif Erikson, which describe Vinland as a fertile land with grapes and abundant resources. Archaeological discoveries at Lono Meadows in Newfoundland have confirmed Norse presence in North America around the year 1000, lending credibility to the map's claims. Yet even with this evidence, the Vinland map refuses to fit neatly into historical consensus. It is a bridge between legend and documentation, between imagination and fact, a thin, fragile piece of vellum that continues to provoke debate. Some researchers suggest that the map may have been created as part of a larger, unrecorded tradition of secret knowledge, passed down among select scholars or explorers. Could it have been a deliberate tool of navigation intended only for the eyes of those who could act upon its information? Others propose that it was symbolic, a representation of the known and unknown, a cautionary tale written in ink. Each theory has its adherents, yet none can claim certainty. In the quiet halls where the Vinland map rests today, one can almost hear the faint echo of our oars cutting through cold northern waters, of explorers scanning icy shores for signs of land. The map itself, brittle and pale with age, invites the mind to wander, not only through the fjords and forests of Vinland, but through the possibilities it embodies. How many journeys have been lost to history? How many discoveries remain hidden beneath the layers of time and parchment? The allure of the Vinland map lies not just in its promise of geographical knowledge, but in its ability to provoke wonder. It raises questions about human curiosity, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of the unknown. It challenges us to consider what we accept as historical fact, and what we dismiss as improbable. And in its margins, in the faded lines and uncertain lettering, it holds a quiet, persistent reminder. History is never as complete as we think, so as we peer upon this enigmatic artifact, we are left with a profound sense of both knowledge and mystery. The Vinland map does not yield its secrets easily. It asks us to imagine the hands that created it, the voyages it represents, and the stories that never made it into written record. Was Vinland a real land charted long before Europeans would claim the New World? Was the map a clever fabrication or a forgotten truth, patiently waiting to be rediscovered? In the end, the parchment remains a pale witness to centuries of speculation, a bridge across time, from the sagas of the North to the libraries of the present. It reminds us that history is never finished, and that the world always holds more mysteries than we can ever fully explain. And so, as we continue to trace the contours of the unknown, we are left with the question that has haunted scholars and explorers alike for generations. What else might the map reveal? If only we could uncover its final secrets. From the icy shores of Vinland and the faded lines of a map that questions the boundaries of exploration, we turn now to a place far closer to home, yet equally shrouded in mystery. A small New England village where fear, belief, and the unknown converged in a way that would leave a permanent mark on history. Salem, Massachusetts in the late 17th century was at first an ordinary settlement. Timber-framed houses lining narrow streets, the faint smoke of hearth fires drifting through crisp autumn air, and children's laughter echoing across the town green. But beneath this familiar facade, tension simmered, an invisible force that would erupt into one of the most chilling episodes of collective hysteria in human memory. It began quietly. In the winter of 1691, several young girls in Salem Village began exhibiting strange behaviours, fits, contortions, and claims of unseen tormentors. These incidents were recorded meticulously by ministers and town officials who documented the girls' afflictions as signs of something far more sinister than illness. Whispers of witchcraft, once an abstract fear confined to sermons and cautionary tales, suddenly became a tangible present danger. Within months, the town had become a crucible of suspicion. Ordinary neighbours accused one another of consorting with the devil. Friendships, marriages, and family bonds were tested against the weight of fear. More than 200 people would ultimately be accused and 20 were executed, most by hanging. Yet, even as history records these events with precision, many questions linger. What caused the girls' strange behaviours? Why did the community descend so rapidly into paranoia? And how could rational adults come to believe in the presence of invisible, malevolent forces? Mainstream historians have offered several explanations. Some point to social tensions, disputes over land, family rivalries, and the pressures of living in an isolated frontier village under the strict moral code of Puritanism. Others suggest medical causes such as ergot poisoning, an alkaloid produced by mold on rye, capable of inducing hallucinations and convulsions. Environmental, psychological, and political factors undoubtedly played a role, yet even these well-researched theories leave room for uncertainty. How did these pressures coalesce into a full-blown panic? Why did rational individuals, including ministers and magistrates, give credence to what appears today as fantastical claims? Adding another layer to the mystery are the confessions and testimonies themselves. Many accused witches admitted to dealings with the devil, sometimes describing elaborate rituals and pacts. These accounts, recorded with careful precision, blend vivid imagery with chilling specificity. Broomsticks used to fly, familiars in the form of cats or dogs, spectral visions that tormented the living. Were these confessions purely the product of fear and coercion, or could they reflect a cultural belief system more potent than modern observers can fully grasp? Some scholars have explored more speculative possibilities. Could the Salem events have been influenced by collective psychological phenomena, a form of mass hysteria that spiraled beyond the control of any one individual? Could the town have been under subtle environmental or chemical influences, amplifying natural stress into tangible, visible convulsions? Others point to the broader cultural and religious context. Puritan New England was steeped in apocalyptic expectation, a worldview in which the devil was not metaphorical, but an active present force. In such a mindset, the boundary between ordinary events and supernatural interpretation was far thinner than we might assume today. Walking through Salem today, one feels the weight of history in the stillness of the streets. The shadows cast by centuries-old buildings and the preserved courtrooms where accusations were read aloud. Visitors often speak of a strange lingering tension, as if the echoes of fear, anger, and belief are embedded in the very timber and stone. It is in this physical context, combined with historical records, that the mystery deepens. How much of what happened can be explained by human psychology, and how much remains an imprint of forces we cannot fully name? The witch trials were not an isolated phenomenon. Across Europe and other colonies, accusations of witchcraft appeared in cycles of panic and persecution, sometimes sparked by famine, disease, or political instability. Salem's case is striking not only for the number of lives it consumed, but for the meticulous documentation it left behind. The records preserve the voices of accusers, accused, and observers alike, allowing us to study the dynamics of fear and belief in a way few historical events do. And yet, despite centuries of scrutiny, the essential question persists: what truly drove a community of ordinary people to act against their neighbours in such extreme ways? Some modern interpretations suggest that there were hidden, less visible stubborn forces at play. Power struggles among families, the economic ambitions of certain individuals, or even subtle attempts to manipulate social order under the guise of moral righteousness. Others explore the possibility that genuine, inexplicable phenomena were interpreted through the lens of religious belief, dreams, visions, or psychological states that were beyond comprehension at the time. Each explanation touches part of the story, but none captures it fully. In the end, the witchcraft trials of Salem remain a haunting enigma. They are a study in human psychology, cultural belief, and the fragility of reason under pressure. They remind us that fear can be as contagious as any disease, that perception can become reality, and that the line between ordinary and extraordinary is often thinner than we like to admit. As we leave the streets of Salem, we carry with us a lingering question. Beyond the documented accusations and recorded trials, how many unseen forces, whether social, psychological, or otherwise, were at work? And what might still lie hidden in the shadowy spaces between belief and evidence, waiting for us to uncover, or perhaps simply to imagine? From the shadowed streets of Salem, where fear and belief intertwined to create a chapter of human history, both horrifying and enigmatic, we now travel to a much older and quieter place, a desert landscape rugged and sun-bleached, where the sands of time have preserved secrets buried for centuries. It is here, among the rocky cliffs overlooking the Dead Sea, that one of the most perplexing artifacts of the ancient world was discovered: the Copper Scroll. Unlike the fragile parchments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, this document is made not of papyrus or leather, but of thin sheets of copper carefully inscribed with precise lettering that has survived millennia. When it was unearthed in Mivti hidden in Cave 3 at Kuman, scholars were immediately struck by its unusual content. While the other scrolls contained scripture, hymns, or legal texts, the copper scroll reads more like a treasure map, an inventory of gold, silver, and artifacts, hidden in secret locations across the Judean wilderness. The sheer audacity of its claims is staggering. Millions of coins, sacred vessels, and other wealth meticulously itemized and yet to this day largely unaccounted for. The copper scroll itself is enigmatic in every sense. Its language and style are consistent with late Second Temple Jewish script, yet its content is unique among ancient writings. It lists over 60 separate hiding places with descriptions precise enough to suggest first-hand knowledge. Some passages reference landmarks now lost to time, and others describe locations that remain tantalizingly obscure. How accurate was the original author? Did they intend for these treasures to be found? Or were these lists a coded record meant to survive until a distant future? Mainstream scholars tend to interpret the scroll in practical terms. Many suggest it was a record of temple treasures removed and hidden during a period of turmoil, possibly during the Roman conquest of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Others argue that it may represent a more ceremonial accounting, a kind of sacred inventory rather than a literal map. Even with these theories, translating the scroll is notoriously difficult. The locations it names are cryptic, and archaeological attempts to match the descriptions to real-world geography have largely failed. The treasures, if they exist at all, remain elusive, hidden beneath layers of rock, sand, and centuries of human history. Yet, the copper scroll invites more speculative possibilities as well. Its meticulous detail and unusual medium, copper, instead of organic material, have led some to wonder if the list was intended as a fail-safe, a record immune to decay and destruction. Others propose that it could have been a coded message, perhaps designed to protect the treasure from enemies or even to convey spiritual truths to initiates who could interpret its significance. In this sense, the scroll is not just a document, it is a puzzle, a bridge between history, belief, and mystery. One striking element is the scale of the treasure it describes. The amounts are immense, almost unimaginable. If even a fraction of it exists, it could rival the wealth of entire ancient kingdoms. This raises further questions. Were these treasures truly hidden in the desert wilderness, or were they removed and dispersed? Their whereabouts lost to time and human conflict? Could Roman looters have intercepted them? Or might the scroll be exaggeration, a literary device intended to inspire awe and reverence rather than to provide practical directions? Archaeologists and historians continue to debate the copper scroll's purpose. Its distinctiveness within the corpus of Dead Sea Scrolls suggests a deliberate divergence from religious texts, yet it shares the same careful craftsmanship and attention to detail. Some theories even posit that the scroll represents a sectarian effort, a group attempting to preserve their wealth and sacred items in anticipation of conquest or destruction. The act of engraving on copper implies permanence and intention, as if the author understood that future generations might seek these treasures, whether to recover them or to bear witness to their existence. Standing in the caves of Kuman today, one can feel the weight of this ancient world pressing silently against the present. The scroll itself, stored safely behind glass in a climate-controlled environment, holds a faint patina of oxidation, a reminder of the centuries it has endured. When one reads the descriptions of hidden vaults, subterranean chambers, and buried riches, it is almost possible to picture the desert as it was 2,000 years ago. Sun-scotched valleys, cliffs riddled with caves, and guardians who may have ensured that these treasures were never found. The mystery of the copper scroll lies not just in its content but in what it represents. The human impulse to conceal, to protect, and to encode knowledge for the future. It is a reminder that history is often incomplete, that what survives may be only a fragment of the full story. Its cryptic directions and seemingly impossible locations continue to challenge modern investigators, treasure hunters, and scholars alike. Some of the scroll's most compelling questions remain deliberately open-ended. Were the treasures truly hidden, or were they symbolic? Were the descriptions precise enough to allow discovery, or were they meant to be nearly inscrutable, a test of patience and persistence for those who would come after? And perhaps most intriguingly, what motivated the creation of such a record in the first place? Practicality, devotion, or something beyond our understanding? As we leave the quiet, rocky landscapes of Kuman behind, the copper scroll lingers in the imagination. It is a document that speaks across millennia, offering hints of wealth, devotion, and secrecy, yet withholding its ultimate truth. It invites us to ponder the lengths to which human beings will go to protect what they value most, and to consider the mysteries that still await discovery beneath the sands of history. And so, as we continue our journey into the shadows of the past, we are left with the enduring question: how much of what the Copper Scroll describes still lies hidden, waiting for patient eyes and careful hands to uncover, and what secrets, both material and symbolic, might remain lost forever in the desert? From the sun-bleached deserts of Qumran, where the Copper Scroll tantalizes with promises of hidden treasure, we travel now to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, to a city that has stood at the crossroads of civilization for millennia. Baghdad, the modern capital of Iraq, rises along the banks of the Tigris River, a bustling metropolis of domes, minarets, and ancient streets. Beneath this living city lies a history layered with myth and enigma, perhaps none more captivating than the legend of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel, described in biblical texts, was said to be a monument of staggering ambition built in the city of Babylon to reach the heavens themselves. Ancient scholars and travellers wrote of ziggurat-stepped monumental structures of brick and mortar that dominated the landscape and the Tower of Babel has long been associated with these constructions. Yet despite centuries of excavation and scholarship, no definitive trace of a tower matching the biblical description has been found. Its precise location, dimension, and even its ultimate purpose remain elusive. Archaeological evidence points to Babylonian ziggurats, such as the Atmani, a massive temple tower dedicated to Marduk, as possible historical counterparts to the Tower of Babel. Historical records suggest it may have reached heights of over 90 feet, with multiple terraces rising toward the sky. But even these reconstructions are fragmentary, based on descriptions from Greek historians like Herodotus and Babylonian inscriptions that survive only in pieces. How accurate were these accounts? And how much of the story we know today has been shaped by myth, theology, and centuries of retelling? The mystery deepens when one considers the purpose of such towers. Were they purely religious edifices designed to honour the gods and mark the connection between earth and sky? Or were they symbols of human ambition, monuments intended to assert power and prestige over both city and kingdom? The biblical account suggests a warning that the hubris of humanity in seeking to reach the heavens would be met with divine intervention. Yet the historical reality may have been far more complex, blending faith, politics, and engineering in ways we are only beginning to appreciate. Mainstream scholarship emphasizes the ziggurat as a technological and cultural achievement. The Babylonians built with mud brick and bitumen, creating monumental structures capable of withstanding centuries of environmental stress. Etamani itself, though partially ruined by time, would have dominated the flat Mesopotamian landscape visible for miles around. But the Tower of Babel legend introduces elements that challenge these interpretations. A tower so tall it threatened the heavens, a sudden confounding of language and a dispersal of peoples that reshape the course of human civilization. How much of this narrative is metaphor and how much reflects a memory of real engineering feats that have since been lost to history? The intrigue does not end with historical reconstruction. Over centuries, the Tower of Babel has inspired speculation ranging from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some theorists suggest that the tower may have been designed with astronomical alignment in mind, serving not only as a religious monument, but also as an early observatory for tracking the movements of stars and planets. Others propose that the stories surrounding its collapse or divine intervention may encode real events, floods, earthquakes, or other natural disasters that destroyed the original structure and gave rise to myth. Adding further layers of mystery is the symbolism of language itself. The biblical account claims that God confounded human speech, scattering people across the earth. Some scholars see this as a theological metaphor, while others ponder whether the story reflects real linguistic diversity or migration patterns in ancient Mesopotamia. Could the Tower of Babel be both a historical site and a conceptual device, merging architecture, culture, and narrative into a single enduring enigma? Walking the ruins of Babylon today, near where modern Baghdad now sprawls, one can see the remnants of walls, terraces, and foundations that hint at the grandeur of the past. The desert wind carries dust and echoes, and it is easy to imagine the ziggurat rising above the city, a monument to human ambition, faith, and curiosity. Yet the precise scale, appearance, and fate of the Tower of Babel remain tantalizingly uncertain. Was it ever completed? Was it truly meant to reach the heavens? Or has that detail been amplified over generations of storytelling? Speculative theories continue to flourish. Some suggest that advanced engineering knowledge, now lost, may have allowed for structures taller than conventional archaeology has assumed. Others propose that the tower or the idea of it influenced architecture far beyond Mesopotamia, inspiring ziggurats, pyramids, and temples across the ancient world. And there are those who imagine that remnants of the original tower may still lie beneath the sands, awaiting discovery by archaeologists or modern technology. The Tower of Babel, like many mysteries of ancient civilization, reminds us of the interplay between human aspiration and the unknown. It challenges us to consider what has been lost, what survives only in fragments, and how stories, mythic or historical, shape our understanding of the past. The legend persists not because of the certainty of fact, but because of the questions it raises. Questions about language, ambition, architecture, and the enduring human desire to reach beyond what is known. As we step back from the plains of Mesopotamia, the image of the Tower of Babel lingers, a monument of ambition, partially obscured by the passage of time, yet illuminated by the imagination of those who encounter it. What secrets remain buried beneath the ruins? What truths have been obscured by centuries of storytelling and the relentless march of history? And so as we continue our journey through the most haunting mysteries of the past, the Tower of Babel invites us to reflect on the boundaries of human knowledge, the fragile nature of memory, and the enduring allure of a story that even without physical confirmation continues to stretch across millennia, reaching for the heavens and challenging us to imagine the impossible. From the windswept plains of Mesopotamia and the towering ambition of the Tower of Babel, we now shift to a quiet library where time itself seems to hold its breath. Among shelves lined with centuries of scholarly works lies an artifact unlike any other. A small leather-bound codex filled with delicate vellum pages covered in a script that no one has ever fully deciphered. This is the Voynich manuscript, a book that has baffled historians, cryptographers, and linguists for over a century. Yet its origins may stretch back hundreds of years before it entered modern awareness. The manuscript is immediately striking. Each page bursts with vivid illustrations of plants that do not exist in any known botanical record, diagrams of celestial bodies, human figures immersed in mysterious rituals, and complex networks of unknown symbols. Its language is indecipherable, the letters and words flowing in patterns that suggest grammar but resist translation. Scholars have called it the world's most enigmatic book, a puzzle that continues to challenge the limits of human knowledge. Carbon dating places the manuscript's creation to the early 15th century somewhere in Europe. Yet nothing beyond that is certain. Who wrote it? For what purpose? Was it an elaborate code, a record of lost knowledge, or perhaps a work of pure imagination? Theories abound, but none are definitive. Its journey into modern history began in 1912 when it was purchased by the rare book dealer Wilfrid Voyage, whose name it now bears. Prior to that, hints of its provenance point to obscure libraries, wealthy collectors, and scholars who treated it with equal parts reverence and puzzlement. Mainstream historians suggest that the manuscript may have been intended as an herbal or medical guide. Some of its pages resemble botanical works, while others chart the movement of stars and planets, perhaps to guide medicinal practices or agricultural planning. Yet no known plant, animal, or astronomical body corresponds exactly to the images within. Were the illustrations symbolic, or did they depict real phenomena now lost to history? The level of detail is precise yet simultaneously unrecognizable, leaving us to wonder whether the creator was encoding knowledge that has since vanished from human memory. Cryptographers have tried for decades to decode its text. During both world wars, teams of codebreakers attempted to unravel its secrets. From the mathematicians of Bletchley Park to modern AI-assisted analysis, patterns emerge. Letter frequencies suggest language-like rules, and yet the manuscript stubbornly refuses to yield a coherent translation. Is it a complex cipher, a private language, or a sophisticated hoax designed to confound and delight generations to come? Speculative theories deepen the intrigue. Some suggest it contains esoteric or alchemical knowledge hidden from all but the initiated. Others argue that it may encode spiritual or mystical wisdom, a manual for meditation or ritual whose true meaning cannot be grasped through conventional methods. A few even propose that its script is not human at all, but inspired by other worldly influence or insight, a product of an imagination that borders on the incomprehensible. While these ideas remain controversial, they underscore the manuscript's ability to provoke curiosity, fear, and wonder in equal measure. The Voynich manuscript is also a meditation on human perception. Its illustrations of bathing women, interconnected tubes, and unusual cosmological diagrams evoke a world simultaneously familiar and alien. Scholars speculate about the culture that produced such a text, a society with knowledge of astronomy, herbal medicine, and symbolic thought, yet operating in a manner lost to us today. Could this have been a coded encyclopedia of a forgotten civilization, or the private diary of a single visionary mind, documenting ideas that would have seemed nonsensical to outsiders? Despite centuries of study, the manuscript retains an aura of mystery. Digital analysis has revealed statistical patterns resembling natural language, while linguistic studies suggest that it may follow grammatical rules, yet no one has consistently extracted meaning. Attempts to match its plants, rituals, and cosmology to historical or cultural references have produced intriguing hints, but no definitive conclusions. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers, reinforcing the manuscript's place at the intersection of history, science, and imagination. Physically, the book is fragile but remarkably preserved. Its pages, illuminated with green, red, and blue inks, are soft to the touch, bearing the faint creases and stains of centuries. The margins are empty, save for careful numbering and occasional annotations in a different hand, evidence that it has passed through generations of careful study. Handling it, one feels the tangible presence of the past, a bridge across time connecting modern observers to the unknown mind that first crafted it. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the Voynich manuscript lies in its resilience. It survives wars, fires, neglect, and centuries of skepticism, continuing to fascinate all who encounter it. Why has no one deciphered it completely? Is the manuscript hiding knowledge we are not ready to grasp? Or is the mystery itself the point, a testament to human curiosity and the limits of understanding? As we gaze upon its intricate pages, we are compelled to wonder, what did the author hope to convey? Were these images and symbols meant to instruct, to reveal, or simply to puzzle? How many secrets remain hidden within its coded lines? And what might they tell us about the people, the science, and the imagination of a time long past? And so, as the coinage manuscript rests silently on its shelf, its secrets locked within ink and vellum, it challenges us to embrace the unknown. It invites reflection on the boundaries of knowledge, the ingenuity of the human mind, and the enduring allure of mysteries that may never be solved. For every attempted translation, every theory tested, and every story imagined, the manuscript remains, as it has for centuries, an enduring enigma, waiting patiently for those willing to confront its silence and ponder the vast possibilities it contains. From the inscrutable symbols of the Voynich manuscript, which resist translation across centuries, we move now to a more recent but no less enigmatic chapter of history. It is the winter of 1916 in the heart of Imperial Russia, and the world is on the brink of upheaval. Amid the snow-blanketed streets of St. Petersburg, one man stands at the intersection of superstition, power, and fear. Gregory Rasputin, the mystic, healer, and confidant to the Romank family. Rasputin was a man whose presence seemed to bend reality. Known as the Mad Monk, he was simultaneously reviled and revered, feared for his influence over Tsarina Alexandra, and respected for his purported healing abilities. His eyes, often described as piercing and hypnotic, and his enigmatic personality gave him an almost mythical aura. Yet, as his power grew, so did the opposition. By the end of 1916, a group of nobles, anxious about his sway over the monarchy and convinced he was a threat to the empire, resolved that he must be removed from history. What followed has become the stuff of legend, and yet it is clouded in contradictions and uncertainty. Rasputin was lured to the home of Prince Felix Yusupov on a cold December night, offered wine and cakes reportedly laced with cyanide. But when the poison appeared to have little effect, the conspirators resorted to more conventional violence, bullets, blows, and ultimately a brutal confrontation that ended with his body being thrown into the icy Neva River. Accounts vary dramatically, and even contemporaneous records differ on the sequence of events. How much of the story has been exaggerated by fear, rumour, or political propaganda? Mainstream historians generally agree on the core facts. Rasputin was assassinated by a coalition of nobles intent on saving the monarchy from his influence. Yet, forensic analysis and eyewitness accounts provide puzzles that resist straightforward explanation. Some reports claim he survived multiple gunshots before succumbing, while others suggest that he was already dead when thrown into the river. Autopsy reports taken years later indicate drowning as the primary cause of death, adding another layer of ambiguity to the night's events. How could a man appear to resist poison and bullets so completely? Or were these accounts merely the embellishments of a story designed to captivate and terrify? Beyond the immediate physical mysteries, Rasputin's death is entangled with broader questions of influence, superstition, and fate. Was he truly impervious to conventional harm as legends claim? Some historians argue that his apparent invincibility may have been psychological, his calm, almost supernatural demeanour intimidating his assassins and lending the night an air of impossibility. Others speculate that Rasputin's mystique has been deliberately amplified over the decades, transforming a politically motivated murder into a tale of the supernatural. The mystique of Rasputin is amplified by the cultural and political context of the time. Russia in 1916 was a nation teetering on the brink of revolution. The Romanovs, desperate to maintain control, leaned heavily on superstition, mysticism, and faith in the miraculous. Rasputin's influence over the Tsar and indirectly Tsar became a lightning rod for anger, suspicion, and rumour. In this sense, the story of his death is inseparable from the anxieties of a nation, the collapse of trust, the fear of unseen forces shaping the course of history, and the human tendency to mythologize those who inspire terror or awe. Speculative accounts have further fueled the enigma. Some claim that Rasputin was poisoned with extraordinary toxins, or that he possessed a cult of knowledge that allowed him to survive the initial attempts on his life. Others suggest that secret societies operating behind the scenes orchestrated the assassination in ways we will never fully understand. Even his death has been woven into the fabric of Russian folklore. Songs, memoirs, and later films portray him as a man who could not die, a figure whose life and death were marked by extraordinary resilience. Visiting the banks of the Neva River today, one can feel the cold, lingering presence of history. The winter air is Dieppe, the water dark and swift, flowing past the city that once witnessed extraordinary ambition, intrigue, and fear. It is easy to imagine Rasputin's final moments, whether peaceful, terrified, or defiant, lost in the swirling currents and the fog of rumour. And yet, even after more than a century, questions remain. How much of what we know is true, and how much is legend amplified by the passage of time? The fascination with Rasputin's death is also a reflection on human nature. We are drawn to stories of the inexplicable, of individuals who seem to defy the ordinary limits of life and death. His murder is more than a historical event. It is a narrative about power, belief, and the fragility of perception. How did one man in a short span of time come to command such influence and inspire such fear? Why does his story continue to captivate, to blur the lines between reality and myth, even in the modern era? Some investigators have attempted to separate fact from folklore through forensic studies, analysis of archival documents, and careful review of memoirs from those present. Each approach reveals partial truths and persistent uncertainties. The precise sequence of events, the effectiveness of the poison, and Rasputin's responses to violence remain subjects of debate. Even the motives of the conspirators are interpreted differently depending on the historian's perspective. Political ambition, moral outrage, or genuine fear of a perceived threat. Ultimately, the story of Rasputin's death is a meditation on the unknown. It invites us to explore the boundaries of fact and legend, to consider how history is shaped not only by what happened, but by how it is remembered, retold, and imagined. Rasputin's life and death, entwined with the fate of an empire on the brink, remind us that even in a world increasingly documented, there are moments where the extraordinary intrudes, leaving behind more questions than answers. As we reflect on the icy river, the shadowed streets of St. Petersburg, and the figure whose eyes seem to pierce beyond the material world, we are left with a profound question. What truths remain hidden in Rasputin's death? And how many aspects of history have slipped into myth so completely that we may never discern the reality beneath the legend? From the shadowed streets of St. Petersburg, where intrigue and superstition collided in the death of Rasputin, we now turn to a place far older, where myth and architecture intertwine across millennia. On the sun-warmed island of Crete, near the modern city of Heraklion, lie the ruins of the Palace of Nasus, an ancient complex that whispers of a civilization whose sophistication and enigma continue to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. Approaching Knossos today, one is struck by its scale. Even in ruins, the palace sprawls across the landscape. Its foundations hint at multi-storied structures, intricate corridors and grand ceremonial halls. Fresco, once vibrant with colour, depicts human figures, animals and elaborate rituals, while storage jars the size of a man speak to an economy both organised and extensive. Yet it is the labyrinthine layout that lingers in the imagination, a twisting network of rooms and passageways that seems designed to confound, to awe, and perhaps to conceal. Could this have been the inspiration for the myth of the Minotaur, the labyrinth and the legendary King Minos himself? The Palace of Knossos dates to the Minoan civilization, flourishing around 1900 to 50 BCE. It was the administrative and religious heart of Crete, with evidence of sophisticated plumbing, drainage systems, and storage for vast quantities of oil, wine, and grain. Mainstream scholarship suggests that the palace functioned as both a political centre and a hub for religious ceremony. Yet beyond the practical, there is an air of mystery. Why was it built in such a sprawling, seemingly confusing design? What rituals took place within its walls? And what did the fresco truly represent? Excavations in the early 20th century by Sir Arthur Evans revealed a city of unprecedented complexity. Yet, questions multiplied as quickly as answers emerged. Fresco depict bull-leaping ceremonies, processions, and figures adorned in ritual garments, activities that hint at religious or cultural significance but resist definitive interpretation. Some rooms appear to have been dedicated to storage, others to ceremonial or administrative functions, yet no written records fully explain the organisational purpose of the palace. The linear script used by the Minoans remains undeciphered, adding another layer of opacity. Without the ability to read their written records, we are left to interpret a civilization largely through its art, architecture, and ruins. Speculation about the Palace of Knossos extends to both myth and mystery. The story of the Minotaur, confined to a labyrinth and fed on human tribute, has often been linked to the palace's intricate layout. Was this myth merely a later Greek invention, a symbolic retelling of societal practices, or could it contain kernels of truth about ceremonial rites that took place within Knossos? Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of ritual deposits, including figurines and sacrificial remains, yet their exact meaning is elusive. Could the palace itself have been a stage for ceremonies designed to impress, intimidate, or even confuse participants and outsiders alike? Some theories suggest that the palace may have had a role in astronomical observation. Certain architectural alignments and ceremonial spaces appear to correspond with the rising and setting of the sun or particular celestial events. If this is true, Knossos may have been not only a centre of governance and religion, but also a hub of astronomical and kind knowledge. Others propose that its construction reflects advanced hydraulic engineering and a societal organisation more sophisticated than previously imagined. Evidence of a civilization at the peak of its technical and cultural achievement. Yet despite centuries of excavation, much remains unknown. The causes of the Minoan civilization's decline, the full extent of its influence across the Aeon, and the specific functions of the palace's most secretive chambers remain matters of debate. Scholars have considered earthquakes, volcanic activity, foreign invasions, and economic shifts. Yet no single explanation accounts fully for the mysteries surrounding Knossos. The palace seems intentionally designed to elicit questions, to resist simple interpretation, its corridors and halls echoing the unknown as much as the known. Walking among the ruins, one is struck by the juxtaposition of artistry and enigma. Fresco of dancers and bulls painted with vivid reds, blues and golds offer glimpses of a world both celebratory and ceremonial. Massive storage jars, some taller than a human, hint at the scale of economic and religious activity. And the labyrinthine passageways with corners that turn unexpectedly and rooms that interconnect in perplexing patterns evoke a sense of deliberate complexity. Was this complexity functional, symbolic, or a combination of both? Knossos invites reflection on human ambition, creativity, and the desire to leave a mark that transcends time. It reminds us that even in an era without modern technology, societies were capable of extraordinary organisation, artistry, and engineering. Yet, it also challenges us to confront the limits of knowledge. Without the ability to read linear A to fully interpret fresco or to uncover the hidden meanings of ceremonial spaces, we are left with fragments, beautiful, evocative fragments that tease our understanding and deepen the mystery. As we linger on the terraces and corridors of Nsos, the palace seems to speak across millennia. It tells the story of power, ritual, and human ingenuity, while simultaneously withholding its full truth. How much of what we see today is a reflection of everyday life? And how much was ceremonial, symbolic, or deliberately hidden? Were the labyrinthine designs meant to confuse and protect, or did they serve a deeper spiritual purpose? And beyond what we have uncovered, what secrets remain buried beneath the floors and walls, waiting for future generations to discover? The Palace of Nos, with its sprawling chambers, vibrant fresco, and enigmatic layout, stands as a monument to human creativity and the mysteries of the past. It invites us to explore not only the ruins themselves, but the imagination of a civilization that continues to captivate, puzzle, and inspire. And as we leave its sun-warmed stones behind, we are compelled to ask, what truths lie still hidden in this ancient labyrinth? And how much of its story will remain elusive, echoing through time like the faint footsteps of a world long vanished? From the sun-warmed corridors of Kossuth, where labyrinths of stone and fresco whisper of Minoan ritual and power, we return now to Mesopotamia, to the region historically recognized as the cradle of civilization. Here, amid the arid plains and winding waters of the Tigris and Euphrates, rises one of the most enigmatic architectural forms of the ancient world, the ziggurat, a massive tiered structure, both earthly and monumental, designed to bridge the human and the divine. Among these, the ziggurats near Baghdad evoke both awe and mystery, standing as silent witnesses to empires long vanished. The ziggurat is immediately striking in form, rising in broad stepped terraces from the flat landscape. Its foundations, though partially ruined, suggest a towering structure built for both ceremonial and symbolic purposes. Constructed from mud brick and baked clay with corners and terraces aligned meticulously, these edifices are reminders of the technological sophistication achieved by the Samaritans, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Yet despite their physical presence, their exact purpose, inner workings, and even the methods used to erect such enormous structures remain shrouded in uncertainty. How could civilizations without modern machinery construct monuments of such scale with such precision? Historical texts, including inscriptions and cuneiform tablets, describe ziggurats as sacred places, temples raised above the earth to honor the gods and bring the community closer to the heavens. The ziggurat near Baghdad, often linked to the ancient city of Barippa, is thought to have been dedicated to Nabu, the god of wisdom and writing. Pilgrims, priests, and rulers would have approached these structures with reverence, ascending terraces that seem to spiral towards the sky. Yet beyond these religious functions, many details remain speculative. What rituals were performed? Were there hidden chambers within the terraces? Did the design encode astronomical knowledge, or perhaps secret cosmological wisdom? Mainstream scholarship emphasizes the dual function of the ziggurat, practical and spiritual. Architecturally, the stepped terraces allowed for stability and durability in an environment prone to flooding and earthquakes. Symbolically, the vertical ascent represented the connection between earth and divine authority. But the ziggurats of Baghdad also inspire a more speculative imagination. Some historians and archaeologists suggest that they were not merely temples, but centers of learning and administration, repositories of knowledge in the form of clay tablets and sacred texts. Could these monumental structures have concealed libraries or secret archives holding records and technologies lost to time? The ziggurat's construction continues to invite fascination. Mud brick and bumen, common building materials in Mesopotamia, were assembled in layers of staggering scale. Terraces were often topped with shrines or small temples accessible by wide staircases. Yet some reports indicate that interior passageways and chambers may have existed beneath the terraces, hidden from casual observation. Was the ziggurat purely ceremonial, or did it serve additional functions, ritual, astronomical observation, or even political control over the city below? Archaeologists continue to debate these possibilities, uncovering tantalizing fragments that hint at more than the structure itself can reveal. Speculative theories extend even further. Some suggest that ziggurats, with their alignment to cardinal points and certain celestial events, were designed to act as observatories for studying the stars. Could the ziggurat near Baghdad have functioned as a practical tool for tracking seasons, eclipses, or planetary movements, encoding astronomical wisdom into its very foundations. Others proposed that the towers were symbolic of the human aspiration to reach the heavens, a physical manifestation of the same ambition reflected centuries later in myths, like the Tower of Babel. In this sense, the ziggurat is both concrete and conceptual, a monument to engineering, spirituality, and imagination all at once. Visiting the remains of the Baghdad ziggurats today, one feels the silent weight of history. The crumbling terraces, partially buried by sand and urban expansion, evoke a civilization that achieved monumental feats, yet left many questions unanswered. Travellers and archaeologists alike describe a sense of awe of being in the presence of something simultaneously human and transcendent. What secrets were hidden within these structures? What knowledge, rituals, or treasures might have disappeared with the passage of time? Adding to the intrigue are accounts of unexplained features in some ziggurats. Certain terraces seem to have been constructed with unusual geometric precision, corners aligning with celestial events, while other sections appear deliberately obscured or inaccessible. Was this the product of advanced engineering, intentional secrecy, or symbolic meaning? Could these architectural choices reflect a deeper understanding of mathematics, astronomy, or metaphysics, preserved only in the stones themselves? The ziggurats also serve as a meditation on human ambition and the drive to leave a mark across centuries. They are physical reminders of civilizations capable of organizing labor, resources, and vision on an extraordinary scale. Yet they are also reminders of the limits of our understanding. Much is eroded, much is buried, and much is only suggested in fragments and texts. Each discovery deepens the mystery rather than resolving it, inviting us to imagine the lives of those who built, climbed, and worshipped upon these monumental platforms. As we stand amid the ruins near Baghdad, the ziggurat looms both literally and metaphorically, a structure bridging human effort, spiritual aspiration, and the unknowable. It challenges us to consider the knowledge lost with the fall of empires, the rituals and practices never recorded, and the mysteries that endure in plain sight. How much did the builders understand about their world? How much of their purpose remains obscured by time, sand, and history? And so, as the sun sets over the plains of Mesopotamia, casting long shadows across the terraces of the ziggurat, we are left with a question that has haunted explorers, historians, and dreamers for centuries. What secrets are still hidden within these monumental steps? And how many truths about human ambition, belief, and knowledge lie waiting to be uncovered beneath the stones of a civilization that sought to reach the heavens? From the monumental terraces of Mesopotamia, where ziggurats rose toward the heavens, we journey now southward along the Nile into the arid expanses of Sudan, where a different kind of pyramid rises, smaller in scale than their Egyptian counterparts, yet no less enigmatic. In the desert sands near the ancient city of Maro lie hundreds of pyramids, the tombs of kings, queens, and nobles of the Kushite civilization, standing as silent witnesses to a kingdom that rivaled Egypt in power, wealth, and mystery. The pyramids of Miao are striking immediately for their form. Unlike the smooth monumental faces of the Great Pyramid at Giza, these are narrow, steeply angled and built of sandstone blocks clustered in sprawling necropolises across the desert plain. Many are crowned with small temples decorated with intricate carvings that have survived centuries of wind, sand, and sun. From a distance they appear almost fragile, yet they have endured the harsh desert climate for over 2 millennia. The sheer number, over 200 pyramids in the area, invites both awe and curiosity. Who were these rulers, and why did they choose to build so many pyramids in this particular style? Distinct from their northern neighbours in Egypt, Maro flourished between approximately 300 BCE and 350 CE, a kingdom that thrived along trade routes linking sub-Saharan Africa with the Mediterranean. The pyramids served as royal tombs, yet their construction and layout continue to provoke question. Many of the pyramids are relatively small, some only a few meters in height, while others rise dramatically, dominating the surrounding desert. Archaeologists have uncovered burial chambers filled with jewellery, pottery, and inscriptions. Yet much remains undeciphered or unexplained. Why did the Kushites favour such steep angles? What rituals accompanied burial? And what symbolic meaning did these structures carry? Mainstream scholarship interprets the pyramids as reflections of Kushite religious and cultural practices influenced in part by Egyptian traditions, but developed in a distinct manner. The positioning of the pyramids, often in rows along the desert horizon, suggests deliberate planning, while the decoration and inscriptions hint at beliefs in the afterlife, divine kingship and protection of the soul. Yet even with these interpretations, the Meoitic script found on Stelian tomb walls remains largely undeciphered, leaving the full stories of these rulers, their lives and their deaths tantalizingly out of reach. The mystery deepens when one considers the broader context of Maro itself. This was a kingdom rich in iron production, trade and political sophistication. Yet it has been overshadowed in history by its northern neighbour Egypt. Some pyramids appear isolated, others in clusters. Some are meticulously finished, while others show signs of hasty construction. Were these differences the result of temporal evolution, personal preference, or social hierarchy? Could some pyramids hold secrets, treasures, ceremonial artifacts, or historical records that are yet to be discovered beneath layers of sand and debris? Speculative theories about Maro abound. Some historians suggest that the pyramids may have served dual purposes as tombs and as symbols of political legitimacy, reinforcing the divine authority of the kings and queens buried within. Others propose that certain structures could have been markers for astronomical or cylindrical observation, aligning with solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events. Could the steep angles have practical implications designed to protect tombs from flooding or sand accumulation? Or were they primarily symbolic, pointing toward the heavens and the realm of the gods? The artistic elements of the pyramids also invite reflection. Carvings of gods, animals, and ceremonial scenes adorn the tomb temples, revealing a culture deeply invested in ritual and symbolism. Yet, many of these depictions are unlike anything found in Egypt, suggesting an independent cultural vision and worldview. The paintings, often vibrant in their time, now fade beneath layers of dust and wind, leaving us with glimpses of a society that understood power, devotion, and the importance of memory. What stories did these images convey to the living? What messages were intended for the dead? Exploration of Meroe's pyramids continues to reveal tantalizing fragments. Archaeologists have unearthed objects suggesting long-distance dance trade, including beads, ceramics, and metals, connecting Maro to far-flung regions of Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean. Such findings hint at a civilization not only rich in material wealth, but also sophisticated in diplomacy, commerce, and cultural exchange. Yet much remains buried, inaccessible, and perhaps deliberately concealed by the sands of time. How many artifacts, inscriptions, or even entire tombs remain undiscovered? Their secrets are waiting silently beneath the desert floor. Visiting the pyramids today, one is struck by the vastness of the desert and the solitude of the necropolises. The wind carries sand across narrow stairways while the sun casts sharp shadows along steep faces. Walking among these tombs, one can almost feel the presence of the Kushite kings and queens, their legacy preserved in stone and memory. And yet the mystery remains. What did these rulers hope to achieve through their monumental tombs? Were they merely asserting earthly power? Or were they reaching for something beyond? A connection to eternity, a message for future generations, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. The pyramids of Sudan, with their steep angles, clustered necropolises, and surviving temples, stand as monuments not only to the Kushite civilization, but to the human desire to be remembered. They invite reflection on the intersection of power, belief, and memory, while also challenging us to confront what remains unknown. How much of the Meroitic story can we truly recover? What truths about life, death, and ambition are locked within these tombs, waiting to be uncovered by patient eyes and careful hands? As the sun sets over the desert, casting long shadows across the pyramids of Meroe, we are left with a haunting question. How many secrets remain buried beneath the sands? And how much of this civilization's wisdom, wealth, and ritual knowledge may forever remain hidden, whispering across millennia to those who dare to wonder? From the windswept sands of Sudan and the enduring legacy of Maro, we now travel north to the heart of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, where the discovery of a nearly intact tomb would ignite a century of fascination, speculation, and enduring mystery. Tutankhamun, the boy king, ruled briefly in the 14th century BCE, yet his tomb, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, would secure his place in history far beyond the limits of his reign. Approaching the tomb today, one is struck by its modest entrance, a narrow stairway cut into the limestone cliffs, hardly suggestive of the treasures hidden within. Descending into the tomb, the air seems to thicken with centuries of silence and secrecy. The chambers open into spaces brimming with artifacts, gilded coffins, painted walls depicting gods and dreary rituals, and objects of daily life meticulously arranged for the king's journey into the afterlife. Yet, the tomb's significance extends beyond its material wealth. It is a puzzle of history, politics, and human ambition, offering glimpses of both extraordinary craftsmanship and enigmatic choices. Tutankhamun ascended the throne as a boy around the age of 9 following the tumultuous reign of Akhenaten, the pharaoh who had attempted to revolutionize Egyptian religion. Tutan's death around the age of 18 was sudden and remains a subject of debate. Mainstream historians propose natural causes such as genetic disorders, infection, or complications from an injury, yet the circumstances surrounding his burial, the hurried nature of his tomb's preparation, and the extraordinary concentration of artifacts have fueled speculation for nearly a century. Was Tutankhamun's early death simply the misfortune of a young ruler, or does it conceal deeper intrigues of palace politics, assassination, or ritual intervention? The tomb itself is a study in contrasts. It is both modest and opulent, small in scale compared to other royal tombs, yet packed with over 5,000 items, each carefully placed. Coffins nested within coffins, treasures wrapped in linen and gold, ceremonial weapons, chariots, and ritual vessels all suggest the importance of the afterlife in Egyptian cosmology. But why was the tomb so small, so hastily complete? Scholars suggest that it may have been prepared in a rush due to the king's unexpected death, yet others speculate that its design may have concealed political intent or the presence of hidden chambers. Could undiscovered rooms still lie behind the walls, hiding objects or secrets that could reshape our understanding of Tutankhamun's reign? The discovery of the tomb also sparked the infamous tales of the curse of the pharaohs following the deaths of several people connected to its unsealing. While mainstream scholarship attributes these events to coincidence, disease, and the hazards of early 20th century archaeology, the legend endures, adding an almost supernatural layer to the tomb's mystique. Did ancient Egyptians truly imbue the tomb with protective magic? Or has modern imagination simply amplified the aura of danger surrounding such a discovery? Beyond these legends, the artifacts themselves are rife with unanswered questions. Gold masks, intricately designed amulets, and ceremonial daggers crafted from meteoric iron suggest access to extraordinary materials and knowledge. Some objects are unique without clear parallels in other tombs, raising questions about their origin, purpose, and symbolism. How much of the tomb's wealth was meant for practical use in the afterlife, and how much was ritualistic or symbolic, conveying messages to gods, the dead, or the living? Scientific investigation has revealed tantalizing mysteries as well. Analysis of Tutankhamun's mummy has suggested possible genetic conditions, fractures, and evidence of malaria, yet no single explanation fully accounts for his death. Modern imaging and forensic techniques continue to yield new insights, but each revelation seems to open new questions. Was Tutankhamun murdered, or was his death the result of natural misfortune? And how much of what we see in the tomb reflects historical reality versus religious or artistic convention? The tomb's layout, decoration, and artifact placement also suggest ritual significance beyond mere burial. Walls painted with scenes from the Book of the Dead, the journey of the sun god Ra, and interactions with deities indicate a carefully constructed cosmology. Every object appears to serve a purpose, yet much of their meaning eludes modern understanding. Could some symbols encode secret knowledge, ceremonial practices, or political statements? Were the arrangements intended to protect the king's soul, to convey status, or to communicate with the living? Visiting the tomb today in the dim light of carefully controlled museums, or in the recreated chambers of the Valley of the Kings, one is struck by a sense of both wonder and melancholy. Here lies a boy who ruled an empire briefly, yet whose legacy is immortalized in gold, stone, and mystery. The tomb is a repository of culture, history, and unanswered questions, a mirror reflecting the ambitions, fears, and beliefs of a civilization that continues to captivate the world. The tomb of Tutankhamun reminds us that even objects seemingly well understood can hold enduring mysteries. Artifacts, inscriptions, and mummies speak to a society obsessed with life, death, and the journey beyond. Yet their full meaning remains just out of reach. How much of Tutankhamun's story will remain forever hidden? How many artifacts, symbolic or functional, have yet to reveal their secrets? And what does the tomb tell us about the human desire to preserve, to awe, and to confront the unknown? As we step away from the golden coffin, leaving the painted walls and meticulously arranged treasures behind, we are left with a lingering sense of awe and curiosity. The tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered nearly a century ago, continues to challenge our understanding of history, mortality, and memory. Its mysteries, like the desert winds that once carried the sounds of ancient Egypt, endure, inviting us to wonder what truths remain hidden, waiting for those bold enough to seek them beneath the sands of time. From the gilded corridors of Tutankhamun's tomb, where youth, death, and divine aspiration converge, we now travel back even further in time to the cradle of civilization itself, Mesopotamia. Here in the arid plains between the Tigris and Euphrates, scribes once recorded the names of kings, dynasties, and cities on clay tablets that would survive millennia. Among these artifacts, one stands out for its enigmatic content and profound implications. The ancient Sumerian king list, a document that intertwines history, myth, and perhaps the inexplicable. The king list is a modest object at first glance, a tablet of clay inscribed with neat cuneiform characters, compact and unassuming. Yet within its lines lies a narrative that challenges our understanding of time, power, and human record-keeping. It lists rulers who governed Sumer, their cities, and astonishingly long reigns, sometimes spanning tens of thousands of years. The earliest kings, it states, ruled before a great flood, a catastrophic event that reshaped the land and the human story. The blend of historical fact and apparent myth raises immediate questions. Were these extraordinarily long reigns symbolic, theological, or perhaps rooted in knowledge now lost to us? Scholars have long debated the origins and purpose of the king list. It appears in multiple copies discovered across various Samrian cities, yet the content is remarkably consistent. The text organises rulers chronologically by city, with reigns stretching into impossible lengths in the earliest dynasties. As we move forward in the list, reigns become more plausible, aligning with archaeological evidence and the emergence of known dynasties. Was this an attempt by Sumerian scribes to legitimize contemporary kings by connecting them to a divine or semi-Dane past? Or does the text encode knowledge of events or phenomena that modern historians cannot yet decode? The king list also provides insight into Sumerian cosmology and worldview. The extraordinary reigns of pre-flood kings suggest a time when humans were closer to gods, or when time itself was measured differently. Some researchers propose that the text reflects ancient concepts of cyclical time, divine intervention, or mythologized memory of real rulers whose deeds were amplified over generations. The recurring mention of a great flood is particularly striking, raising parallels with later Mesopotamian epics such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and even stories found in other cultures. Could these accounts be echoes of actual cataclysmic events preserved through storytelling and ritual record? Mainstream archaeology interprets the king list as a political tool as much as a historical record. By presenting a continuous line of succession, Sumerian kings could legitimize their rule and establish continuity with a divine past. Yet the document also hints at mysteries beyond mere politics. The unusually long reigns, the pre-flood civilizations, and the occasional mention of obscure or unknown cities all suggest a layer of knowledge or belief that is inaccessible to modern scholars. What did the Sumerians know or believe that compelled them to record these extraordinary details? Some speculative interpretations delve further. Could the king list contain encoded astronomical, calendarical, or geological knowledge now obscured by language and time? Might the pre-flood kings correspond to a distant epic, one that is difficult to reconcile with modern chronology? Others suggest that the text may reflect collective memory of societal or technological achievements that were subsequently lost. Civilizations advanced in ways that left few traces beyond legend. While these ideas are controversial, they underscore the king list's enduring capacity to provoke wonder and reflection. The physicality of the tablets adds another layer to their mystique. Each uniform character is pressed with deliberate care, indicating the high value of accuracy and permanence. These scribes, working in early forms of written record, were preserving more than names and dates. They were encoding cultural memory, religious belief, and perhaps a sense of cosmic order. The tactile nature of the clay, hardened by fire, preserves not only information, but also the intent of those who created it, bridging millennia to connect modern readers with the minds of Sumerian thinkers. Despite centuries of study, the king list retains an aura of unresolved mystery. Certain names appear only once, others seem mythological or allegorical. Some reigns are astronomically long, impossible in human terms, yet their inclusion suggests meaning beyond literal chronology. What truths, symbolic or practical, lie behind these inscriptions? Could there be fragments of lost knowledge embedded in the sequence of kings and cities, waiting for a new generation of scholars to decode? Reading the king list is an invitation to contemplate the boundaries between myth and history. It challenges us to consider the ways in which human societies understand time, legacy and authority. Are the pre-flood kings entirely mythical? Or might they reflect memories of societies and events that we can no longer access through conventional archaeology? How much of what we call history is shaped by narrative interpretation and cultural need, rather than objective chronology? As we examine the clay tablets today, housed in museums or resting in storage rooms of excavation archives, we confront the enigmatic precision of Sumerian scribes, the extraordinary claims of early dynasties, and the persistent question of what lies beneath recorded history. The king list reminds us that even the earliest civilizations were capable of constructing narratives that endure far beyond the lifetimes of their creators, blending truth, memory, and imagination in ways that continue to challenge modern understanding. And so, as we leave the ancient scribes' work behind, we are left with a profound lingering question. How much of humanity's past remains hidden in fragments, myths, and records like the Samaritan king list? And among the countless generations, kings, and events recorded or forgotten, what truths still waiting to be uncovered might reshape our understanding of civilization itself? From the ancient scribes of Sumer recording kings whose reigns stretched into myth, we now cross continents and millennia to the rolling hills of southern Ohio, where a monumental work of earth and imagination winds across the landscape. The Great Serpent Mound. This enormous effigy, stretching over 400 meters in length, coils sinuously along a hilltop. Its undulating curves are visible from the sky, yet enigmatic and almost intangible from the ground. It is a creation that commands both awe and curiosity. A relic whose origin, purpose and meaning continue to elude historians and archaeologists alike. The first impression of the Serpent Mound is immediate and striking. Viewed from a vantage point above the hill, the effigy stretches in a sinuous line, its head forming a pronounced spiral as though poised to strike and its tail curling in multiple coils. The mound is composed of carefully piled earth meticulously shaped to form a recognizable and dramatic figure. Unlike stone monuments or architectural complexes, this is a work of landscape itself, an intentional reshaping of terrain to convey form, symbol, and perhaps meaning. The precision and scale suggest not merely artistic vision, but an advanced understanding of geometry, spatial planning, and communal effort. Dating the Serpent Mound has been the source of much debate. Some scholars associate it with the Adana culture around 1000 BCE, while others link it to the Fort Ancient culture several centuries later. The materials themselves, earth, clay and stone, cannot be radiocarbon dated directly, so researchers rely on charcoal deposits, stratigraphy and contextual artifacts to estimate age. This uncertainty adds to the mound's mystique. How did cultures separated by centuries or even millennia come to construct such a monumental figure? Was it the work of a single society, or might it represent a site that held layered significance over time, repurposed and revered by successive generations? The purpose of the Serpent Mound remains equally enigmatic. Mainstream archaeology suggests ceremonial or ritualistic functions. Perhaps it was a site of worship, a calendar of solar and lunar events, or a marker for seasonal cycles critical to agricultural life. Intriguingly, the mound's head aligns closely with the summer solstice sunset, while other portions may correlate with lunar events. Could the builders have encoded astronomical knowledge into the very contours of the Earth? And if so, what ceremonies Lizor believes were tied to these cosmic patterns? Speculative theories abound, drawing attention to both the serpent symbolism and the mound's shape. In many indigenous cultures, serpents represent fertility, transformation, or protection, while the spiral at the head has been interpreted as a portal, a coiled energy, or a symbolic depiction of water or life force. Others have proposed more extraordinary ideas that the mound reflects ancient observations of comets, meteor paths, or even celestial alignments now lost to time. Were these interpretations coincidental, or did the builders possess knowledge of the cosmos beyond what we commonly associate with prehistoric North America? Despite the careful study of the site, the methods of construction remain remarkable. The mound rises several meters above the surrounding landscape, its curves smooth and consistent despite the limitations of pre-Columbian tools. It likely required the coordinated effort of hundreds of individuals moving earth, measuring distances, and ensuring the shape maintained fidelity across its immense length. The sheer scale raises further questions. How were the proportions maintained over such distance without aerial perspective? And what organizational or social structures enabled a community to execute such a project? Artifacts discovered in proximity to the Serpent Mound hint at ceremonial activity. Stone pipes, pottery fragments, and evidence of fire pits suggest ritual gatherings. Yet none directly explain the mound's form or purpose, leaving the figure itself as a riddle encoded in earth. Some researchers argue that the serpent may have served as a symbolic guardian protecting a sacred site, while others see it as a representation of ancestral lineage or spiritual cosmology. The absence of written records, as in so many prehistoric monuments, leaves interpretation largely to inference and imagination. The landscape itself enhances the enigma. Perched atop a plateau overlooking a winding valley, the mound interacts with sunlight, shadows, and terrain to create dramatic effects that change throughout the day and seasons. From this vantage, one can almost sense the intentionality behind its placement, the thoughtfulness of builders who considered more than shape alone, but also sight lines, perspective, and the interplay of human experience with natural topography. Could this have been a deliberate integration of sacred space with the natural world? A manifestation of belief rendered in land itself? Visiting the Great Serpent Mound today, one experiences a duality. It is both tangible and elusive. Its contours can be traced by foot, yet its full form and meaning remain partly inaccessible, requiring aerial perspective and imaginative reconstruction. Standing at the head or tail, one can imagine the hands that shape the earth, the ceremonies that may have occurred, and the knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, or symbolic, encoded into every curve. And yet, with each step, the mystery deepens. How much have we interpreted correctly, and how much remains forever hidden beneath layers of soil, memory, and time? The Serpent Mound is more than an artifact. It is a bridge across centuries, a testament to human ingenuity, spirituality, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world. Its form challenges our assumptions about prehistoric peoples and their relationship with landscape, cosmos, and ritual. How did they conceive, plan, and execute such a monument? What beliefs or knowledge guided their hands? And perhaps most provocatively, what remains unseen, buried within the earth, or the collective memory of those who built it, waiting to reveal its secrets to those patient enough to look closely? As the sun sets over the Ohio hills, casting long shadows along the serpent's coils, the Great Serpent Mound continues to coil through time. A monument both sad and eloquent, it invites reflection on human ambition, artistry, and the enduring mysteries of prehistory, reminding us that even in landscapes we think we know, profound secrets may lie hidden, waiting for those willing to trace their curves, study their alignment, and wonder what they were truly meant to convey. From the winding coils of Ohio's Great Serpent Mound, where prehistoric peoples reshaped the earth itself, we now journey southward across the continent to the highlands of Peru, overlooking the city of Cusco, where another extraordinary feat of ancient engineering rises, the Sacsayhuaman Walls. These monumental stone terraces, precisely interlocked and colossal in scale, dominate the skyline, suggesting a mastery of masonry and spatial awareness that continues to confound scholars and engineers alike. Here in this Andean fortress complex, history, power, and mystery converge in ways that remain deeply evocative. The first impression of Sacsayhuaman is immediate and profound. Massive blocks of limestone, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with astonishing precision, leaving gaps so narrow that not even a blade of grass can pass between them. The walls curve and zigzag along the ridges of the hill, creating terraces that both impress and intimidate. The sheer scale suggests not only a defensive purpose, but also a monumental statement of power, artistry, and ingenuity. How did the builders transport such massive stones across rugged Andean terrain without modern machinery? And what tools, techniques, or knowledge allowed for such perfect interlocking without mortar? Sacsayhuaman is traditionally attributed to the Inca civilization of the 15th and 16th centuries, though some researchers speculate that earlier cultures may have contributed to its foundations. The fortress itself likely served multiple purposes: a military stronghold protecting the city below, a ceremonial centre, and perhaps a symbolic statement of the empire's reach and divine authority. Archaeological evidence indicates that the walls were part of a larger complex, including temples, plazas, and administrative buildings, yet the precise layout and function of many structures remain obscure. What rituals took place within these walls? Were they strictly defensive, or did they serve spiritual or cosmological functions as well? The construction methods at Sakayan continue to intrigue researchers. Stones were quarried from distant locations, transported across uneven terrain, and shaped with incredible precision to fit without the use of mortar. Some stones are polygonal, each with multiple sides cut to fit their neighbours like a massive jigsaw puzzle. Mainstream archaeology suggests a combination of copper tools, levers, and labour-intensive effort, yet many aspects of the process remain unexplained. Could the builders have used techniques lost to time, or were there methods of moving and shaping stone that surpassed even modern understanding? The wall's design also hints at possible astronomical and symbolic significance. Some researchers note alignments with solstices and cardinal points, suggesting a connection to Inca cosmology. Could the orientation of the walls and terraces reflect not only defensive strategy, but also a deeper understanding of the heavens and the sacred landscape? Was Sakayan deliberately positioned to echo the surrounding mountains, rivers, spheres, or celestial cycles, integrating the physical and spiritual worlds into one monumental structure? Speculative theories about Sakayan abound. Some suggest that the precision of the stonework reflects knowledge of vibrational energy, geometry, or even lost technologies, given that the stones fit together so perfectly that conventional explanations strain credulity. Others propose that the fortress was more than defensive or ceremonial. It may have been a sacred space, a point of communication with higher realms, or a repository of knowledge encoded in the architecture itself. The interplay of shadows, terraces, and curves evokes intentionality beyond mere practicality, hinting at a culture deeply attuned to both form and meaning. Visiting Sakayan today, one is struck not only by the scale of the walls, but by the tactile presence of the stones themselves. Each massive block seems to resonate with the labour, vision, and belief of those who shaped it. Walking along the terraces, one can almost imagine the builders, hundreds of hands lifting, sliding, and placing stone with extraordinary skill and coordination. And yet with each step, questions multiply. How did they organise such labour without modern machinery? How much of the fortress's design reflects practical need, and how much embodies spiritual or symbolic intention? The fortress also challenges our understanding of Andean history. The Inca Empire is remarkable in its administration, road systems, and cultural achievements, yet Sakai-Huaman raises questions about the limits of pre-Columbian engineering. Some stones appear impossibly heavy to move with levers and manpower alone. Others bear signs of shaping so precise that even modern tools struggle to replicate it. Was this simply an extraordinary testament to human ingenuity? Or does it hint at techniques and knowledge that have been lost to time? The walls are more than a defensive structure. They are a dialogue between humanity and landscape, between ambition and nature. Their terraces curve along ridges, echoing the contours of the mountains, while their massive stones resist erosion, centuries of earthquakes, and the passage of time. Each corner, each joint seems to have been considered with intention, suggesting a vision that integrates practicality, artistry, and perhaps even cosmology. Sakai-Huaman invites reflection on the human desire to leave a permanent mark to create structures that endure across centuries. Its mysteries, how it was built, why certain methods were chosen, what rituals occurred within its walls, remain unresolved. How much of the fortress's meaning is lost, buried in history, or encoded in ways that elude modern comprehension? Could hidden chambers or symbolic patterns still be waiting to reveal themselves to those who look carefully, who study, measure, and imagine? As the Andean sun casts long shadows across the Sakayan terraces, the walls stand as a testament to human ambition, skill, and imagination. They invite us to ponder the capabilities of civilizations long past, and to wonder what knowledge, purpose, or ritual significance might still lie hidden among the stones, echoing across centuries to challenge our understanding of history, engineering, and the mysteries of the human spirit. From the colossal stones of Sakayan, where human ambition reshaped mountains into fortresses, we now journey across the vast expanse of time and space to prehistoric Japan, to a land of forests, rivers, and volcanic landscapes. Here, amid the remains of ancient settlements, lie small yet enigmatic figures of clay, the dogu. These intricate figurines, often no taller than a hand, evoke a sense of both intimacy and mystery, standing as silent witnesses to a culture that flourished in Japan during the Jan period, roughly between 14,000 and 300 BCE. The first encounter with a dog is arresting. Each figurine is unique. Its forms exaggerated or stylized with wide eyes, elaborate patterns, and distinctive limbs. Some appear humanoid, while others blend anthropomorphic and abstract qualities, as though merging human and symbolic aspects into a single form. Crafted from clay, often with incised or applied decorations, the figurines reveal meticulous attention to detail and artistry, despite, or perhaps because of their small size. Their scale suggests they were not intended for monumental display, yet their presence implies profound significance. What role did these figures play in German society? Were they ritual objects, symbols of fertility, representations of deities, or something entirely beyond our understanding? Archaeological studies reveal that dogs are most often discovered in settlement sites, buried carefully within the earth or found in ritual contexts. Some bear signs of repair or intentional destruction before deposition, hinting at complex symbolic or ceremonial practices. Many exhibit exaggerated features, wide goggle-like eyes, large hips, or intricate patterns carved or painted onto the surface. These features have led scholars to speculate on their purpose. Perhaps they were used in healing rituals, fertility rites, or as talismans to protect the community. Yet no written records accompany them, leaving their exact meaning elusive. Could they have served as conduits between the human and spirit worlds, a form of communication with forces unseen? Mainstream interpretations emphasize the figurine's potential spiritual or ritualistic functions. Some researchers suggest that dogu may have been employed in sympathetic magic by creating a representation of a person, deity, or desired outcome. Practitioners might influence reality in subtle or unseen ways. Others note that their distinctive eyes may have been designed to see beyond the physical world, connecting their owners to spiritual insight or protection. Yet such interpretations, while plausible, can only hint at the richness of their significance. Why, for example, do certain dogs feature such complex geometric patterns, or appear in poses that defy natural human articulation? What knowledge or vision did the John people seek to encode within these shapes? The figurines' diversity is remarkable. Some are humanoid with detailed facial features, while others are abstract or hybrid forms. A subset known as goggle-eyed dogu has drawn particular attention, as their large almond-shaped eyes appear to peer into something beyond human perception. Could these figures represent shamanic intermediaries, spiritual guides, or visions experienced during trance or ritual? And why are they so consistently crafted across regions separated by hundreds of kilometers and centuries of time? The repetition suggests a shared cultural vision, yet the full intent remains hidden beneath layers of clay, earth, and time. Material analysis offers further intrigue. Dogu are typically made of fired clay, sometimes with traces of pigments or applied decorations. Certain figures show evidence of repeated handling or use, while others appear intentionally broken, perhaps as part of ritual decommissioning. This interplay between creation, use, and destruction hints at a worldview in which objects were not static, but active participants in cultural and spiritual life. Could these figurines have been designed to absorb or release energy, disease, or spiritual power, functioning as intermediaries between the living and unseen realms? Speculative theories have pushed interpretations even further. Some researchers propose that the figurines may reflect an advanced understanding of anatomy, symbolic language, or cosmology encoded in miniature form. Others suggest that the exaggerated eyes, limbs, and body proportions may indicate visions or knowledge of phenomena beyond the ordinary, perhaps spiritual experiences, altered states of consciousness, or an early form of abstract representation of unseen forces. Could the dog be more than ritual objects, artifacts that encode forgotten wisdom, lost narratives, or connections to a reality now inaccessible to us? The context in which dogu are found adds another layer of mystery. Many are uncovered in pit dwellings, burial sites, or near hearths, suggesting integration into daily life as well as ceremonial practice. Their careful placement, often in clusters or alongside specific offerings, hints at intentionality and narrative. Were these figurines storytellers, each one embodying a fragment of myth, history, or knowledge? Or were they active participants in rituals, living as conduits of spiritual or social influence? The artistry of Dogu also evokes questions about the Jan worldview. Despite the simplicity of their tools, these prehistoric peoples produced forms of striking complexity and symbolism. Each figurine is a miniature monument, preserving a human imagination attuned to both the material and the spiritual. The fact that similar forms appear across centuries and regions suggests continuity of belief, yet the absence of textual records leaves us grasping at interpretation. What stories, instructions, or metaphysical concepts might have been encoded in their curves, patterns, and proportions? Visiting the sites where Dogu are found, one is struck by the intimacy of scale and the monumental weight of their implied significance. Unlike large fortresses or pyramids, these small figures invite close observation, reflection, and even personal engagement. They speak to a different kind of human endeavour, a careful, deliberate act of shaping clay to preserve meaning across generations. And yet with each study, each analysis, the mystery persists. How much of Jan's belief and practice can we reconstruct from these objects alone? And how much will remain inaccessible, lost to time and silence? The Dogu figurines are more than artifacts. They are tangible fragments of a worldview, remnants of ritual, imagination, and belief that reach across millennia. They challenge us to consider the ways in which humans communicate with the unseen, negotiate life and death, and embed meaning in material form. How did these small objects influence the communities that created them? What truths or knowledge encoded in shape and pattern remain hidden beneath the surface? And perhaps most intriguingly, what can these tiny enigmatic figures teach us about the human capacity for symbolism, spirituality, and creativity in a world before writing, cities, or formal history? As the sun cast its light across excavation sites in Japan, illuminating the delicate curves and goggle-eyed stares of these ancient figurines, they invite us into a world simultaneously familiar and alien. They remind us that even in small objects, human ambition, belief, and imagination can endure across centuries, challenging our understanding of history, ritual, and the mysteries that persist in the artifacts of civilizations long past. What remains unseen in their eyes? And what stories have yet to be uncovered, waiting in clay, earth, and memory to whisper their secrets to those who dare to look closely? From the quiet ancient symbolism of Japan's Dogu figurines, where human imagination and ritual intertwine, we now travel north across continents to the remote turgid expanse of Siberia, a land of dense forests, frozen rivers, and vast emptiness. Here in the early hours of June 30th, 1908, a sudden and violent event would transform the landscape, leaving an enduring mystery that has captivated scientists, historians, and curious minds for more than a century. This is the story of the Tangusa event, a cataclysm that flattened thousands of square kilometers of forest near the Tunguska River, yet left behind few physical traces of its cause. The first impression of Tangusa today is deceptively serene. The taiga stretches uninterrupted, a living carpet of pine and spruce punctuated by rivers and bogs, with the distant horizon fading into mist and sky. Yet beneath this calm lies the memory of a singular explosion, estimated to release energy equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of tinto, hundreds of times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Eyewitness accounts from nearby villages describe a blinding flash, a rolling shockwave that knocked people off their feet, and a roar that shook the earth. Trees were snapped and scorched, flattened radially from the epicenter, creating a pattern still visible from aerial photography. How could such devastation occur without leaving an impact crater, a conventional signature of explosive force? Scientific investigation began in earnest decades later, when Soviet expeditions traversed the Siberian wilderness to study the site. Researchers observed the peculiar characteristics of the destruction. Trees stripped bare of branches yet left standing in some places, the absence of significant crater formation and anomalies in the soil and tree resin suggesting an intense aerial blast. Early hypotheses ranged from a meteorite impact to volcanic activity, yet none fully explained the combination of effects. Could the source have exploded above ground, dispersing energy in a hemispherical wave that decimated the forest while leaving the Earth itself largely unbroken? The mainstream explanation today posits that a meteoroid or comet fragment entered Earth's atmosphere and detonated mid-air, creating an airburst of extraordinary force. Computer models suggest that an object perhaps 50 to 100 meters in diameter composed of ice or rock disintegrated tens of kilos above the ground, releasing energy in a massive explosion. This model accounts for the absence of a crater and aligns with eyewitness accounts of a bright fireball. Yet even with modern simulations, uncertainties remain. How precisely did the object fragment? And why was the resulting pattern of destruction so irregular? Could there have been factors at play, composition, trajectory, atmospheric conditions that we still do not fully understand? Beyond the scientific models, Tunguska has also inspired a host of speculative and fringe theories. Some suggest that the explosion was the result of natural gas eruptions from the Earth's crust, nuclear reactions in the atmosphere, or even unidentified technological phenomena. Others have posited links to extraterrestrial objects, proposing that the blast may have involved unknown forms of energy or matter. While many of these ideas remain highly controversial, they underscore the enduring fascination of an event that defies simple explanation, challenging conventional understanding of natural and celestial processes. Eyewitness testimony adds another layer of mystery. Locals reported hearing a series of low booms, feeling intense heat, and seeing a bright, silent fireball streaking across the sky before the explosion. Animals reportedly behaved erratically, and rivers near the epicenter reportedly roiled unnaturally. These observations, combined with sparse photographic evidence and tree ring analyses, create a picture that is partially reconstructed yet never fully captured. How much did perception shape these accounts, and how much reflects phenomena that we have yet to fully quantify or understand? The long-term environmental effects of Tunguska remain notable. Even decades later, scientists observed peculiar patterns in forest regrowth and soil chemistry, suggesting that the energy released had lasting effects beyond the immediate destruction. In some areas, vegetation recovered in unusual ways, with species distribution differing from surrounding forests. Could there be subtle lingering environmental consequences that hint at unknown forces released during the event? And might similar phenomena have occurred in history unrecorded, leaving only faint traces in tree rings, folklore, or oral history? Tunguska also invites reflection on human vulnerability in the face of cosmic forces. Despite the region's remoteness, the sheer scale of the explosion raises the question: what if such an event occurred over a major population centre? How well do we understand the frequency, scale, and impact of celestial objects entering Earth's atmosphere? And what does the Tunguska event teach us about the limits of observation and prediction in a universe full of both visible and hidden forces? The mystery is compounded by the sparsity of evidence. Unlike other meteorite impacts, Tunguska left no identifiable fragment of the original object in situ, save for trace elements detected in tree resin and soil. This absence of tangible remains fuels speculation, even as sophisticated models attempt to reconstruct the event. Could the object have vaporized completely, leaving only an imprint in the forest's radial pattern? Or might fragments still lie buried, undiscovered, awaiting future exploration? And if so, what might they reveal about the nature of celestial bodies and the mechanics of atmospheric entry? Visiting the site today, one is confronted by a juxtaposition of serenity and catastrophe. The forest is lush. Birdsong fills the air and rivers flow unperturbed. Yet the patterns of destruction, still faintly visible in aerial surveys, hint at a past moment of almost unimaginable energy. Walking among the trees, one senses both human awe and the limits of comprehension. The Tunguska event is a reminder that Earth remains a stage for phenomena that exceed our everyday experience, and that, even in the age of science, mysteries endure that challenge assumptions and provoke wonder. The Tunguska event is more than a historical curiosity. It is a window into the forces that shape our planet and the universe itself. It illustrates the intersection of observation, science, and mystery, showing how natural phenomena can inspire awe, fear, and speculation across generations. How much of the event can we ever fully explain, and how much will remain hidden in the interplay of energy, atmosphere, and the unpredictable variables of the cosmos? And as we consider other potential celestial threats, what lessons might Tunguska teach about preparation, humility, and the enduring enigma of the sky above? As the Siberian taiga stretches endlessly toward the horizon, the memory of that sudden, silent explosion lingers. The Tunguska event reminds us that history is not only made by human hands and deeds, but also by forces beyond our control. Forces that shape landscapes, challenge understanding, and continue to spark curiosity, speculation, and wonder. What secrets of this cataclysm still lie buried awaiting discovery? And how might the universe yet surprise us with events equally breathtaking and unfathomable? From the remote forests of Siberia, where the Tunguska event revealed the profound power of unseen cosmic forces, we now journey to the tropical lowlands of ancient Mesoamerica, to a civilization that flourished long before the rise of the Maya or the Aztec, the Mech. Here, scattered across the lush plains of modern-day Mexico, stand the enigmatic colossal heads, monumental sculptures carved from single blocks of basalt, each bearing a unique visage, an expression of authority, and a mystery that continues to intrigue archaeologists and historians alike. The first encounter with a mech head is striking and unforgettable. Each sculpture, often measuring between 1.5 and 3 meters in height and weighing several tons, dominates its surroundings. The faces are detailed and remarkably lifelike, with broad noses, thick lips, and elaborately adorned headdresses that suggest status, identity, or symbolism. The sheer size, the precision of the carving, and the effort required to transport these massive stones from distant quarries, sometimes dozens of kilos away, speak to a society with not only technical skill, but also the organisational capacity to mobilise labour on a monumental scale. How did the Mech achieve this without the wheel or draft animals? And why did they choose to immortalise these figures in stone? The origins of the heads date roughly between 1400 and 400 BCE, marking the early formative period of Mesoamerican civilization. Archaeologists have identified multiple sites where these sculptures stand: San Lorenzo, La Venta, Tres Hautes. Each location offers hints about political power, ceremonial centres, and regional influence. Yet despite centuries of study, the exact purpose of the heads remains elusive. Were they portraits of rulers, deities, or ancestors? Did they serve as guardians of sacred spaces, as markers of territorial control, or as objects of ritual significance? The absence of written records or inscriptions leaves the answers tantalizingly out of reach. The transportation and construction of these colossal figures alone raise profound questions. Basalt, a dense volcanic rock, was quarried from sites sometimes over 60 kilometers away from the locations where the heads now stand. Without modern machinery, the merchant moved these immense stones across rivers, through dense forests, and over uneven terrain. Experimental archaeology has attempted to replicate these feats, employing wooden sledges, ropes, and coordinated teams. But even these efforts highlight the ingenuity, skill, and labour necessary to accomplish such a task. What techniques, knowledge, or organisational methods allowed a civilization to accomplish something so extraordinary, and how much of that knowledge has been lost to time? The artistic and stylistic details of the heads invite further intrigue. Each face appears individualised with distinct features that suggest careful observation and perhaps even portraiture. The headdresses adorned with elaborate motifs hint at rank, religious affiliation, or political identity. Yet their precise meaning is unknown. Some heads are positioned in alignment with ceremonial centres or landscape features, suggesting intentional placement beyond mere aesthetics. Could these colossal visages serve as a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, or a symbolic assertion of power and memory meant to endure across centuries? Speculative interpretations of the heads abound. Some researchers propose that the exaggerated features and headdresses encode symbolic or cosmological knowledge. Others suggest that they may reflect many ideas of divine rulership in which the ruler embodies both human and spiritual qualities. A few fringe theories have even proposed extraterrestrial influence or lost technological knowledge inspired by the scale, precision, and apparent sophistication of the sculptures. While these ideas remain controversial, they underscore the head's capacity to provoke wonder and challenge conventional explanations of ancient achievement. The head's enduring mystery is amplified by the cultural and environmental context of their creation. The Olm lived in a landscape of vidhud, wetlands, and tropical forests, an environment both rich in resources and challenging for transportation and construction. The ability to move massive stones, carve intricate forms, and place them with deliberate orientation reflects a society deeply attuned to both natural and human forces. Were the heads simply monuments to political authority, or did they carry layers of meaning embedding religious, astronomical, or cosmological knowledge within their forms? And if so, how much of that knowledge can we reconstruct through archaeology alone? Another striking aspect of the mech heads is their durability. Despite centuries of exposure to tropical rains, humidity, and occasional seismic activity, many heads survive today, testament to the precision of their carving and placement. The sculptures not only preserve artistic skill, but also convey a profound cultural intent, a desire to endure, to communicate across time, and to assert a legacy in stone. Each visage seems to look outward, a silent observer of the centuries that have passed, inviting reflection on the society that created it and the forces, both human and natural, that it has witnessed. The mystery deepens when considering the number and distribution of the heads. While fewer than 20 are known, each is distinct, suggesting that each may have commemorated a specific individual or event. Yet the reasons for their dispersal, the criteria for selection, and the rituals associated with their erection remain unknown. Were these monuments part of a broader network of ceremonial centres aligned with watercourses, sun paths, or other geographic features? Did they serve as territorial markers, communicating power and authority to surrounding communities? Or were they primarily spiritual, intended to connect the living with the ancestral or divine? Visiting a merchant head today, one is struck by both its physical presence and its emotional resonance. Standing before the carved face, it is possible to imagine the hands that shaped it, the effort of labourers hauling massive stones, and the societal structures that allowed such a feat. Yet even as we marvel at technical achievement, the head's true meaning remains elusive, hidden within layers of time, culture, and lost knowledge. How did the Olm conceive of power, identity, and legacy in ways that compelled them to immortalise these figures in stone? What stories, beliefs, or histories lie encoded in the faces we see today, waiting for interpretation? The mechanical colossal heads are more than archaeological artefacts. They are a bridge to a civilization that predated written history, a society whose understanding of artistry, power, and permanence challenges modern assumptions. They speak to the human desire to communicate, to memorialize, and to transcend mortality through creation. And yet, even after decades of research, they remain mysterious, inviting both awe and reflection. How much of the Memek worldview, their religious practices, or their political systems is forever lost? And what might future discoveries reveal about these monumental witnesses to a vanished society? As the tropical sunlight falls across the ancient stones, casting shadows that accentuate the faces and headdresses of these enigmatic figures, the Memek heads continue to stare across centuries, silent yet eloquent. They remind us that human ambition, creativity, and the urge to leave a mark on the world are constants across time and geography. And perhaps most provocatively, they whisper a question that continues to haunt historians and archaeologists alike. What secrets, beliefs, or knowledge did these colossal figures encode, waiting for those patient enough to study, ponder, and wonder at the mysteries they preserve? From the lush lowlands of Mesoamerica, where the Mech colossal heads silently gaze across centuries, we now journey across deserts and rivers to the ancient plains of Mesopotamia, where one of the most evocative and enigmatic wonders of the ancient world is said to have existed. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, described in text from Greek historians to Babylonian chronicles. This extraordinary creation of terraces, greenery, and engineering has long captivated the imagination. Yet centuries of investigation have yielded as many questions as answers. The first impression of the Hanging Gardens, as reconstructed through historical accounts, is breathtaking. Imagine a massive stepped structure rising above the arid plains of southern Mesopotamia, each terrace overflowing with lush foliage, vines cascading downward like waterfalls of green. Exotic trees and fragrant plants watered through an intricate system of pumps and channels would have created a living oasis in the heart of Babylon, a city otherwise dominated by brick, dust, and heat. The gardens were said to blend aesthetic beauty, engineering prowess, and the symbolic assertion of power, an attempt to transform the natural world into a controlled paradisal vision. How could such a marvel have existed in a region so hostile to plant life? And what techniques did the ancient Babylonians employ to sustain it? Historical records suggest that the gardens were commissioned by King Nebuchadnezzar II, who ruled Babylon from 605 to 562 CEE, allegedly to please his wife Amytas of Media, who longed for the lush mountains of her homeland. Greek historians such as Strauss and Foe of Byzantium describe tiered gardens with stone terraces, pumps lifting water from the Euphrates, and a verdant array of flora that would have appeared miraculous to contemporary observers. Yet, the absence of definitive Babylonian records, no inscriptions, no archaeological remains explicitly identified, as the gardens leaves scholars debating whether they truly existed or whether they were an idealized legend woven from the imagination of later chroniclers. Could a civilization more than 2 millennia ago have engineered such a feat? And if so, why do we find no conclusive evidence of it today? The engineering challenges are striking. To elevate water to the top terraces, some form of hydraulic technology would have been necessary. Perhaps chain pumps, screw devices, or even aqueduct-like construction. The weight of the soil, the volume of water, and the stability of the terraces would have required precise planning and execution. Was this knowledge lost as Babylon fell to conquest and decay? Or are traces hidden beneath centuries of sand, mud, and river sediment? The very idea that such a structure could exist in one of the world's earliest urban centres challenges assumptions about ancient engineering capabilities. Descriptions of the gardens also hint at symbolic significance beyond mere aesthetics. In a city dominated by ziggurats, palaces, and monumental gates, the Hanging Gardens may have represented the power of human ingenuity to transform nature, an earthly paradise reflecting divine favour and royal ambition. Some scholars argue that the gardens functioned as a demonstration of political authority, an assertion that the king could bend the environment to his will, impressing both subjects and visitors alike. Yet the question remains, were they primarily ornamental, functional, or ritualistic? Could they have served as sacred space, a venue for ceremonies invoking fertility, abundance, or cosmological harmony? Speculative theories add layers of intrigue to the story. Some researchers suggest that the Hanging Gardens may not have been in Babylon at all, but in Nineveh, as part of the Assyrian Empire, misattributed by the later historians. Others propose that the gardens, if they existed, were less grandiose than described, embellished in Greek texts to create an image of a near-mythical paradise. Some have even speculated about lost technologies of irrigation, soil, stabilization, or architectural innovation that allowed the gardens to flourish, evidence of which has disappeared due to natural disasters, river course changes, or human destruction. Could these explanations taken together hint at a civilization whose achievements were systematically erased or buried, leaving only stories behind? The very allure of the gardens lies in their combination of the natural and the engineered. While the surrounding landscape was arid, the gardens, according to legend, teemed with life, colour, and fragrance. Vines, fruit trees, and flowering shrubs reportedly draped over terraces, creating a canopy of greenery visible from a distance. The terraces may have been designed to mimic mountains, a vertical landscape within an urban context, suggesting that the Babylonians sought to reconcile natural beauty with architectural innovation. How might such design have been conceptualized, executed, and maintained over years, decades, or centuries? Archaeological searches in Babylon have revealed remnants of terraces, canals, and water channels, but no definitive evidence of the gardens has been recovered. Excavations show that the Euphrates River's shifting course, centuries of conquest, and the accumulation of alluvial deposits could have obliterated any remains. Some soil layers hint at large-scale irrigation or elevated planting, but interpretations remain debated. This tension between textual description and material evidence intensifies the mystery. Is the absence of direct proof a reflection of myth-making, natural destruction, or the selective survival of history? Visiting the site today, the modern city of Hela sprawls across the ruins of ancient Babylon, with crumbling brick walls, the remnants of palaces, and dry riverbeds hinting at past grandeur. Imagining the Hanging Gardens rising above this landscape, with terraces lush with greenery, water cascading in engineered channels, and sunlight filtering through foliage, one cannot help but marvel at the possibility. What would it have felt like to walk among these terraces, hear the trickle of water, inhale the scent of exotic plants, and stand in awe of human ingenuity paired with nature's splendour? And yet with every step the question persists. Was this vision real or a creation of collective memory? A legend sustained through centuries by desire, imagination, and admiration for human capability. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon remain a monument to mystery, whether historical, symbolic, or partially mythical. They illustrate humanity's fascination with the union of art, engineering, and nature, and remind us that even the most vivid stories may contain kernels of truth lost to time. How much of what we read and imagine reflects actual achievement, and how much is coloured by the awe and interpretation of chroniclers across generations? And most provocatively, could remnants of this wonder still lie buried beneath layers of earth, awaiting discovery to reveal secrets of ancient ingenuity, landscape design, and the human yearning to create paradise in the midst of desolation? As the afternoon sun casts shadows over the ruins of Babylon, the memory of the Hanging Gardens lingers, a vision of verdant terraces rising above mud brick walls, a water lifted by human ingenuity, and of a civilization striving to capture both beauty and power in a form that defied the arid landscape. Whether legend, reality, or a combination of both, the Hanging Gardens continue to fascinate, inviting us to reflect on what remains hidden in history. What truths lie buried beneath centuries of dust, and what marvels might still await discovery in the faint whispers of memory, text, and the imagination of those who seek to uncover them. From the lush terraces of Babylon, where the boundaries of imagination and reality blur in the memory of paradise, we now turn our gaze to the shadowed edges of medieval geography, a realm both real and imagined, where maps ended in mist and rumour, and where the figure of Prester John emerged, inspiring wonder, hope, and relentless exploration. The legend of Prester John, a Christian patriarch and king said to rule a vast and fabulously wealthy kingdom far to the east, captivated Europe for centuries. Yet the location, existence, and reality of this enigmatic monarch remain elusive, suspended between myth and history. Imagine the world as it appeared to a 12th century European scholar. The lands beyond the known, beyond the Holy Roman Empire, the Mediterranean, and the Fertile Crescent were shrouded in mystery. Accounts arrived in the form of letters, stories, and chronicles, speaking of a distant kingdom where rivers flowed with unimaginable abundance. Gold and precious stones were common, and Christians lived in harmony under the benevolent rule of a monarch of extraordinary wisdom and virtue. Prester John was described as a ruler whose wealth and power rivaled that of emperors, a figure whose kingdom served as both a spiritual beacon and a political ideal. But was this kingdom real or merely a mirror of European hopes and anxieties projected onto the unknown world? The earliest references to Prester John appear in letters circulated around 1165, purportedly from the king himself, describing a land of vast riches, marvels, and a faithful Christian population. Medieval readers were enthralled. Here was a potential ally against the Muslim powers of the Middle East, a distant realm where Christian dominion persisted untouched by Islamic conquest. Scholars, adventurers, and clergy pored over these descriptions, mapping rivers, mountains, and cities based on sparse textual evidence and imagination. Yet, as tantalizing as these letters were, no definitive proof ever surfaced, leaving Prester John suspended between geography and legend. The legend drew its power not only from its promise of distant wealth, but also from its moral and spiritual resonance. Prester John was not simply a king. He was an archetype of the just and pious ruler embodying ideals of Christian kingship and divine favour. Chronicles describe palaces adorned with gold, gardens of exotic plants, and armies that maintained peace and order. Some accounts hint at marvels bordering on the supernatural, as singing trees, fountains of precious liquids, and strange beasts under the king's protection. Could such embellishments reflect actual observations distorted by retelling? Or were they deliberate symbols of power, faith, and the unknown, crafted to inspire hope and wonder? Attempts to locate Prester John spanned centuries and continents. Early speculation placed him in India, beyond the frontiers of the Islamic world. Later, attention shifted to Ethiopia, a Christian kingdom isolated in the Horn of Africa, whose rulers and traditions may have inspired and perpetuated the legend. Maps as late as the 16th century still marked his realm, sometimes conflating it with other distant territories, rivers, and mountain ranges. Explorers sought alliances, merchants sought trade, and missionaries sought salvation, each driven by the tantalizing promise of a kingdom that may have existed only in collective imagination. The mystery deepens when considering the sources themselves. Letters attributed to Prester John were sometimes forgeries created for political or religious purposes, yet they were widely circulated and accepted by many as authentic. Chroniclers of the Crusades referenced his kingdom as a potential ally. Royal courts negotiated based on the hope of his aid. Could these documents have been deliberate propaganda intended to inspire action, motivate exploration, or maintain morale during a period of conflict and uncertainty? Or did they contain fragments of genuine observation filtered through centuries of storytelling, translation, and exaggeration? Speculative interpretations of Prester John add further intrigue. Some modern historians suggest that the legend represents a cultural synthesis of distant knowledge, rumour, and myth. An amalgam of reports about India, China, and Ethiopia filtered through European imagination. Others have proposed more metaphysical readings, interpreting the king as a symbol of the unknown, a personification of humanity's longing for a perfect, just, and distant world. The allure of Prester John lies not only in his purported kingdom, but in what he represents, the intersection of curiosity, hope, and the limits of knowledge. A reminder of the human tendency to populate the unseen world with ideals, fears, and aspirations, eyewitness accounts, travellers' tales, and the occasional confirmed report of distant Christian communities fueled the legend. The Ethiopian connection particularly lent credibility as European envoys encountered the Solomonic dynasty and its Christian practices, which may have been interpreted as echoes of Prester John's realm. Yet the vast distances, cultural differences, and lack of direct evidence ensured that every story remained partial, each encounter more tantalizing than the last. Was the king ever a single individual? Or did Prester John become a title applied to multiple rulers across time and space? Each absorbs attributes of myth and imagination. The legend of Prester John also reflects the anxieties and aspirations of medieval Europe. During an era of crusades, shifting alliances, and territorial uncertainty, the promise of a powerful, distant ally captured the imagination. Maps, letters, and chronicles reveal the persistent human desire to imagine order, morality, and security beyond the known world. Yet this fascination also underscores a broader truth. In the absence of direct evidence, myth and reality often intertwine, creating enduring enigmas that challenge the boundary between historical fact and cultural imagination. In considering Prester John, one must also reflect on the persistence of legend itself. For centuries, scholars, explorers, and adventurers pursued a kingdom that may have existed only in the collective imagination, guided by texts, hearsay, and hope. The search shaped geography, diplomacy, and trade routes, leaving tangible effects on history, even if the king himself never existed. How many other mysteries have similarly influenced human endeavour, guiding curiosity and exploration even as the truth remains elusive? Visiting the regions associated with Prester John today, the rugged landscapes of Ethiopia, the deserts and rivers of India, and the historical records preserved in European archives, one encounters a juxtaposition of reality and imagination. There are rulers, cities, and cultures of great significance, yet none fully align with the grandeur described in medieval chronicles. The legend persists, not in physical form, but in the human psyche, a testament to our fascination with distant wonders and the unknown. How much of the narrative reflects genuine observation, how much is shaped by myth, and how much will forever remain beyond our reach? The enduring power of Prester John lies in the questions it raises. Was he ever real or merely a composite of stories, hopes, and distant cultures? Did his imagined kingdom reflect actual societies misinterpreted through distance and rumour? Or did it exist purely as a projection of human aspiration? And even more provocatively, what does the persistence of this legend reveal about humanity's desire to map, categorise, and understand the world, even when knowledge is incomplete, inaccessible, or hidden behind the veil of time? As the sun sets over the plains and mountains once imagined as Prester John's domain, the figure of the king remains an enduring symbol of the unknown, a mirror reflecting both the limits of medieval knowledge and the boundless reach of human imagination. The letters, maps, and chronicles continue to whisper across centuries, inviting reflection on what may exist just beyond the edge of perception and reminding us that history is as much shaped by stories as by facts. What secrets, if any, lie hidden in the lands that inspired his legend? And how many other mysteries wait in the uncharted corners of our world, ready to challenge our understanding and ignite our curiosity? From the shadowed legends of distant kings and imagined kingdoms, where the line between reality and myth blurs, we now descend beneath the surface of the earth itself into a world hidden from sunlight, air, and ordinary perception. In the heart of Cappadocia, Turkey, lies the subterranean marvel of Derinkuyu, a city carved entirely into volcanic rock stretching as far as 60 meters deep and capable of sheltering tens of thousands of inhabitants. Unlike tales of kings or lost gardens, this mystery is tangible. Yet it holds secrets as profound and elusive as any whispered across deserts or imagined across oceans. Approaching Derinkuyu today, the first encounter is unassuming. Narrow stone entrances, subtle openings in soft volcanic tuff, and the gentle slope of the Cappadocian hills. Yet as one passes through the first carved doorways, a sense of scale and ingenuity emerges. Stairs wind downward into darkness, connecting chambers that served as living quarters, kitchens, stables, wineries, and even chapels. Ventilation shafts allow air to circulate to the lowest levels, while rolling stone doors hint at defensive strategies designed to protect the hidden community. It is a subterranean world where light, sound, and movement are controlled, where every curve of the rock seems intentional, and where human presence has been layered upon millennia of geological formation. How did the builders conceive and execute such an extraordinary structure, and for what purpose? The origins of Derinkuyu are debated, though most scholars date its earliest construction to the Byzantine period around the 8th century BCE. With expansions continuing for centuries, the city may have served as a refuge during invasions, earthquakes, or other threats, providing a fully self-sufficient environment shielded from external forces. Yet the sheer scale of Derinkuyu raises questions. Why create a city capable of housing up to 20,000 people underground, complete with wells, ventilation, and extensive storage? What cultural, social, or existential pressures drove such monumental engineering? And what knowledge did its builders possess that has since vanished? Exploration of the tunnels reveals a meticulous attention to detail. Passageways narrow and widen, some barely sufficient for a single person, others opening into vast communal halls. Stone doors weighing hundreds of kilograms could be rolled into place to seal off sections of the city, suggesting both a defensive strategy and an understanding of security and crowd control. The presence of stables, chapels, and food storage implies prolonged habitation, perhaps for months at a time. Could Derinkuyu have been more than a temporary refuge? A permanent underground settlement designed to withstand social upheaval, natural disaster, or even the unknown? Speculative interpretations abound. Some have suggested that Derinkuyu was constructed not solely for defensive purposes, but as a ceremonial or religious site, perhaps reflecting a subterranean cosmology or spiritual symbolism. Others have proposed more extraordinary theories connecting its construction to lost civilizations, advanced ancient engineering, or even contact with unknown cultures whose techniques have been lost to time. While these ideas remain controversial, they underscore the enigma of a city whose scale, planning, and execution surpass expectations for the period, and whose subterranean corridors continue to inspire awe. Archaeological evidence provides glimpses, but few definitive answers. Pottery fragments, tools and remnants of daily life suggest Byzantine-era use, while later expansions hint at adaptation by different communities over centuries. Yet much of Derinkuyu's original purpose, its earliest builders, and the full extent of its network remain unknown. Some tunnels extend beyond currently explored areas, connecting with other underground cities in Cappadocia, creating a subterranean labyrinth spanning dozens of kilometers. Was this a coordinated regional network of refugees, or an organic series of expansions built independently by successive generations? The human experience within Derinkuyu adds another layer of fascination. Imagine descending into the darkness, relying on flickering oil lamps to illuminate rock-carved corridors. The sound of footsteps echoing against centuries-old walls. Families lived, worked, and worshipped here. Hidden from external threats bound together by shared knowledge of tunnels, chambers, and secret passageways, how did inhabitants navigate this labyrinth without modern mapping? What social structures, rules, or rituals governed life beneath the Earth's surface, where sunlight and seasons were absent, and every corner held both security and danger? The ventilation system is particularly remarkable, consisting of vertical shafts connecting the multiple levels, designed to provide fresh air even to the deepest chambers. Water sources were carefully maintained, wells dug to sustain large populations, and storage rooms constructed to preserve food for long periods. Every feature reflects foresight, engineering skill, and understanding of environmental constraints. Yet the more we uncover, the more questions arise. How did these communities coordinate construction, transport materials, and maintain stability over time? And why after centuries of use were some areas abandoned, sealed, or forgotten until rediscovered in modern times? Darren Kuyu also challenges our understanding of ancient urban planning. The city exhibits a combination of practicality and ingenuity. Narrow corridors slow invaders, rolling stone doors provide defensive isolation, and multi-level structures maximize space while minimizing exposure. These elements suggest strategic thinking, and understanding of human psychology, and sophisticated architectural principles. Could knowledge of stress distribution, ventilation, and crowd management have been common among these builders? Or was Darren Kuyu an exceptional creation unique in its conception and execution? Visiting Daranuyu today is a visceral encounter with human ingenuity and mystery. The tunnels echo with history, shadows cast by lanterns revealing rough-hewn walls, hidden chambers, and faint inscriptions. Standing in the cool subterranean air, it is impossible not to feel the weight of human effort, the ingenuity required to carve, organize, and inhabit this hidden world. Yet at the same time, the city resists full comprehension, preserving secrets of purpose, planning, and daily life that continue to elude scholars. How many levels remain unexplored? How much knowledge has been lost to time, collapse, or simple erosion? The mystery of Darren Kuyu is enduring because it touches on fundamental human questions. How do societies respond to threat, fear, and uncertainty? How does ingenuity manifest in extreme circumstances? And what drives a community to create a city beneath the earth, hidden from sight and shielded from danger? The answers may lie partially in archaeology, partially in speculation, and partially in the imagination of those who descend into its tunnels, tracing the steps of people who lived, laboured, and perhaps even thrived in a world apart from the sunlit lands above. Daranuyu remains more than an archaeological site. It is a testament to resilience, secrecy, and the lengths to which humans will go to protect themselves and preserve their way of life. As one ascends from the lower levels back into sunlight, the warmth and openness of the Cappadocian hills contrast sharply with the shadowed chambers below, emphasizing the deliberate isolation and sophistication of the subterranean city. And yet, the city retains its enigmas. The full extent of its tunnels, the identity of its earliest builders, and the motives behind its astonishing construction remain partially hidden, inviting both study and wonder. As the daylight fades across the Cappadocian landscape, the city of Daranuyu stands as a silent guardian of its own secrets, a labyrinth of stone and human ingenuity. It reminds us that history is not only found in ruins above ground, but also in hidden depths where mystery, memory, and mastery converge. How many more stories lie buried beneath our feet waiting to be uncovered? And what might Darren Kuyu teach us about the unknown capabilities of those who came before? Living in harmony with fear, creativity, and the uncharted realms of human potential. From the labyrinthine depths of Daranuyu, where human ingenuity carved entire cities beneath the earth, we now turn to an object of a very different kind, one that stands not underground but preserved within the bogs of ancient Siberia. Silently witnessing millennia of change, the Shagir idol, a wooden sculpture unlike any other, rises over 5 mm tall, its surface etched with enigmatic geometric patterns and stylized human-like faces. It is a relic from a world more than 11,000 years ago, yet its meaning, purpose, and origin remain shrouded in mystery, inviting us to ponder the beliefs, artistry, and imagination of people long vanished from memory. Encountering the Shagir idol today is a confrontation with both scale and antiquity. The statue's towering form, crafted from larch wood and remarkably well preserved in peat bogs, exudes a silent authority. Its surface is covered in intricate motifs, zigzags, chevrons, lines, and circles that seem almost mathematical in precision, yet their symbolism is obscure. Human faces emerge along its length, not singular but repeated in sequence, staring outward with wide, expressionless eyes. The very presence of the idol evokes questions about ritual representation and the capacity for abstract thought in prehistoric societies. Who created this figure? And why would such time, labour, and skill be devoted to a single wooden form? The Shagir idol was discovered in 1819 near the Shagir peat bog in the Sudlausk region of the Ural Mountains, buried in layers of peat that preserved it with astonishing detail. Radiocarbon dating in recent years suggests that it may be over 11,500 years old. predating Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. This antiquity elevates the idol from mere artifact to one of the oldest known monumental wooden sculptures in the world. The realization that humans in the immediate post-glacial period were capable of creating symbolic large-scale art challenges, conventional narratives about prehistoric societies. How did these early people conceive of representation, symbolism, and scale at such a distant point in history? The geometric patterns and stylized faces are central to the idol's enigma. Some researchers suggest that the markings represent a form of proto-porting or mnemonic systems, encoding myth, ritual, or historical memory. Others interpret the figures as protective spirits or ancestral embodiment, a vertical cosmology linking Earth, humanity, and sky. Yet the absence of written records or accompanying artifacts leaves these interpretations speculative, and the true meaning of the carvings may remain forever inaccessible. Could these symbols reflect a shared cultural language understood by a community now lost to time? And if so, what stories, beliefs, or knowledge did they seek to transmit across generations? The idol's construction presents further questions. Larch wood is dense and durable, yet shaping a sculpture of this scale would have required sophisticated woodworking tools, careful planning, and coordinated effort. Each segment of the idol appears deliberate, suggesting not only technical subtle skill, but also conceptual intent. Was the idol a communal project, a spiritual undertaking, or a political statement? Did it serve as a focal point for ritual, a marker of territory, or a symbolic record of cosmology and social order? And how did its creators transport and erect it in the bog, ensuring its stability for centuries to come? Speculative theories have proliferated, fueled by both the idol's age and its cryptic markings. Some propose astronomical significance, suggesting that the carvings may align with celestial events, seasonal cycles, or environmental changes. Others explore spiritual interpretations, viewing the idol as a conduit between humans and supernatural forces, a totem embodying ancestral knowledge. A few fringe hypotheses even posit that the idol hints at lost civilizations or unknown technologies, though such claims remain highly controversial. What is indisputable, however, is the capacity of this sculpture to inspire awe and provoke questions about human cognition and creativity in the deep past. The Shigir idol also challenges assumptions about prehistoric art. Unlike portable figurines or cave paintings, this is a monumental sculpture intended to endure both physically and symbolically. Its preservation in peat, a natural preservative of organic material, allowed modern researchers to encounter a wooden form almost intact. Yet the context of its placement remains partially obscured. Was it erected as a standalone figure, part of a larger ritual landscape, or within a ceremonial enclosure? How did its presence shape the social, spiritual, and ecological environment of the people who created it? Contemplating the idol is a journey into the minds of a society we can only glimpse through fragments. These people lived in their harsh, post-glacial world, subsisting on hunting, gathering, and early forms of settlement. Yet in the midst of survival, they invested extraordinary time and effort into creating a monument, carving abstract symbols and faces into towering wood. What motivated such labour? And what cultural values did it embody? The Shigir idol suggests that even in early prehistory, humans sought to communicate across time to shape memory and identity in ways that transcend generations. The preservation of the idol is itself remarkable. Peat bogs are aerobic and acidic conditions that inhibit decay and allow organic material to survive millennia. This accidental protection creates a time capsule, a direct encounter with the artistry and belief of humans from over 11,000 years ago. Yet, even as we marvel at the survival of this wooden giant, we confront the limitations of knowledge. The context of the idol's original placement, the exact meaning of its carvings, and the full extent of its cultural significance remain elusive, prompting reflection on the fragility of history and the serendipity of preservation. The Shigir idol also invites comparison across human history. How did its creator's worldview relate to that of other ancient societies, such as the builders of subterranean cities, monumental sculptures, or lost gardens? Despite temporal and geographic distance, there emerges a shared impulse, the desire to leave a lasting mark, to encode meaning, and to grapple with existence, power, and spirituality through material culture. Yet the Shigir idol remains unique in form, scale, and preservation. A silent interlocutor across millennia, challenging modern observers to reconstruct thought, belief, and artistic intention from what survives. Standing before the idol today, one cannot ignore the sense of continuity and mystery. Its carved faces, geometric patterns, and imposing height demand both attention and contemplation. They evoke questions about identity, ancestry, and the human desire to transcend mortality through creation. And yet, for all its presence and majesty, the Shigir idol resists definitive interpretation. What did its makers hope to communicate? What rituals, beliefs, or stories did it anchor? And how many aspects of human experience, creativity, and understanding are encoded in symbols that modern eyes cannot fully decipher? The Shigir idol is not merely a relic. It is a testament to human ingenuity, imagination, and the persistent drive to make sense of the world. It connects us to people who lived in landscapes frozen by glacial retreat, who faced the challenges of survival and the imperatives of culture, and who left a monument that continues to speak across 11,000 years. In its silent, weathered wood, it invites reflection on the mysteries of human history, the stories lost to time, the beliefs never recorded, and the marvels waiting to be rediscovered in the most unexpected corners of the world. As the modern visitor traces the grooves of its patterns and the contours of its faces, the Shigir idol reminds us that history is not always preserved in stone or text. Sometimes it lies buried in organic matter, waiting for the careful eye and patient mind to unlock its secrets. And in that stillness, one is left to wonder what truths about our distant ancestors, their art, their beliefs, and their understanding of the world are still hidden beneath peat, mud, or the obscurity of time. How many more messages from the past await discovery, ready to illuminate not only human history, but the enduring mystery of human imagination itself? From the frozen bogs of Siberia, where the Shigir idol stands as a silent witness to a civilization long vanished, we now journey to a different hemisphere, to the sun-drenched valleys and highlands of central Mexico. Here, the heart of the Aztec Empire once pulsed with life, trade, and ceremony. A civilization of astonishing complexity and sophistication. Yet in the midst of conquest and destruction, one of the most tantalizing artifacts connected to this empire. The lost map of the Aztec Empire has eluded historians, archaeologists, and explorers alike. Its existence is whispered in chronicles and hinted at in scattered fragments. But the full map, the document that might reveal the true geography, political boundaries, and sacred sites of an empire at its zenith, remains one of history's most beguiling mysteries. The story of the lost map begins in the chaotic years following the Spanish conquest of Tenochtitlan in 1521. The Aztec capital, a marvel of canals, causeways, and grand temples, fell to Cortés and his forces, and with it countless notices, artifacts, and records were destroyed or dispersed. Among these lost treasures, references appear to a detailed map that chronicled the empire's territories, trading networks, tribute systems, and ritual sites. Scholars have long debated whether the map was a codex, a painted scroll, or a series of symbolic drawings designed to head for internal administration or spiritual guidance. Whatever its form, the map would have represented not only a geographical record, but a cultural and political statement, a window into the Aztec worldview. Descriptions of the map come from colonial-era chronicles and letters primarily written by Spanish officials and missionaries. They describe a document of striking accuracy and detail, illustrating cities, rivers, mountains, and sacred precincts with precision that rivals modern geography. Symbols indicate temples, marketplaces, and roads, while colour and pattern differentiate the various provinces and tribute obligations. Yet despite these tantalising references, no physical copy has survived. Or if it has, it remains hidden in archives, private collections, or lost to time. How could such a pivotal document vanish so completely? And what truths about the Aztec Empire might it conceal? The potential significance of the lost map extends far beyond geography. If authentic, it would offer insight into Aztec engineering, settlement planning, and political organisation, revealing the scope of an empire that spanned vast distances and diverse ecosystems. The Aztecs were not only warriors and priests, but skilled administrators capable of integrating conquered regions into a cohesive economic and religious system. Could the map also encode ritualistic or cosmological knowledge, guiding priests, nobles, or rulers through the spiritual landscape of the empire? Might it reflect the duality of the Aztec worldview, blending the practical, political, and sacred in a single artifact? Speculation about the map's disappearance adds another layer of mystery. Some suggest it was intentionally destroyed to erase pre-Columbian knowledge and assert colonial authority, Others propose that it survived for a time in private collections or religious institutions, hidden from view, miscatalogued or misunderstood. Over the centuries, rumours have surfaced of fragments appearing in European archives only to vanish again under obscure circumstances. Could these fragments represent pieces of the original map, or are they reinterpretations, copies, or forgeries created by those fascinated by Aztec civilization? The truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. Archaeological efforts have occasionally intersected with the map's legacy. Excavations in central Mexico reveal city layouts, causeways, canals, and ceremonial centres that echo descriptions from colonial sources. Scholars reconstruct trade routes, tributary towns and resource networks, attempting to recreate the map in digital or physical form. Yet without the original, these reconstructions remain speculative, guided by inferences rather than direct evidence. How much might have been lost, misrepresented, or deliberately concealed in the centuries following conquest? And could the original map still lie undiscovered, buried in a forgotten archive or private collection, waiting to illuminate the empire in ways modern scholarship can scarcely imagine? The lost map also highlights the tension between indigenous knowledge and colonial erasure. While Spanish chroniclers documented aspects of the Aztec world, their interpretations were inevitably filtered through European perspectives shaped by political, religious, and cultural biases. The map, if it existed, would have been a document of the Aztecs' own making, a representation of territory, power, and spiritual significance conceived within their worldview. What dimensions of Aztec knowledge, planning, and artistry are irretrievably lost because the map vanished? And what fragments of understanding might still be reconstructed from notices, oral histories, and archaeological evidence? Speculative theories regarding the map abound. Some researchers propose that it encoded hidden knowledge about resource management, sacred sites, or astronomical observation. Others suggest that the map may have served as a guide for pilgrimage, military campaigns, or the administration of tribute. A few fringe ideas even hint at advanced surveying or mapping techniques that could challenge assumptions about pre-Columbian technology. While these remain hypotheses, they underscore the power of a lost artifact to stimulate curiosity, inspire research, and provoke debate across disciplines. The lost map also serves as a reminder of the fragility of human records. Unlike stone monuments which can endure millennia or oral traditions which adapt and evolve, a single document, paper, bark, or cloth can disappear in an instant. Fires, looting, neglect, and war have erased countless traces of past civilizations, leaving gaps in our understanding and inviting speculation. In this sense, the lost map is more than an artifact. It is a symbol of absence, of knowledge that once existed but now eludes discovery, compelling us to reconstruct the past from shadows, fragments, and echoes. Engaging with the mystery of the map also connects us to the human desire to explore, preserve, and understand. Explorers and historians driven by the allure of the Aztec world have traced trade routes, excavated ceremonial centers, and analyzed surviving cities. Each step brings us closer to glimpsing the empire as its people once knew it. Yet the map itself remains a ghostly presence, a silent testament to the sophistication of the Aztecs and the irrecoverable gaps in the historical record. What stories, strategies, or spiritual insights did it encode? And what impact might its rediscovery have on our understanding of pre-Columbian civilizations? Standing metaphorically before the lost map, one senses the scope of what is missing, the interplay of imagination and evidence, and the persistent allure of the unknown. It invites us to consider not only the Aztec Empire, but the broader human impulse to document, organize, and symbolize our world. Even in its absence, the map shapes inquiry, guiding archaeologists, historians, and enthusiasts toward new discoveries, interpretations, and questions. What might still be hidden in the archives of monasteries, the collections of collectors, or beneath the landscapes of Mexico itself? How much of history depends on fragile traces? And how many other maps, notices, or records lie lost, waiting to transform our understanding of the past? The lost map of the Aztec Empire reminds us that history is not merely a record of what survives, but also a story shaped by what has vanished. It exemplifies the interplay between discovery and mystery, the tension between known and unknown, and the enduring human fascination with the worlds that came before us. And as we continue to search, analyze, and imagine, the map remains both a challenge and an invitation, a testament to the grandeur of the Aztec Empire and a prompt for us to ponder what secrets of the past are still waiting to emerge.